Inside the shop, Lola turned toward Leo with a thoughtful expression, her thoughts extending toward both her companions who had become so important to her daily life. "We should try to cheer him up somehow when he comes back," she said with gentle concern, recognizing that Noah would need emotional support beyond their brief conversation. Leo lifted his golden head from his resting position and let out a soft, reassuring roar that seemed to convey understanding of Noah's distress. His young but increasingly mature voice sounded. "Father looked really sad when he saw the fighting," Leo observed with perceptive honesty. "Maybe we could cook him some delicious meal when he returns, and I could show him the new tricks I've been practicing." The young lion's suggestions were so simple that it made Lola's chest tie-in with warmth for his innocent desire and thoughts of cheering up Noah. "Those are wonderful ideas," Lola agreed warmly. "He'll appreciate knowing we were thinking of him while he was processing everything. However, we should also think about some more stuff." Her conversation with Leo was interrupted as she felt new presences manifesting outside. More grandmasters started to appear from both sides. Lola moved quickly toward the window with growing dread, understanding that the conflict wasn't diminishing but expanding like wildfire spreading through drought-stricken forest. Through the magical glass that protected their sanctuary, she witnessed the scene of master-level mages, practitioners who had represented the pinnacle of magical achievement just days ago, when she herself held similar rank, were falling from the sky like insects. Grandmasters occasionally fell too. Their bodies, strengthened beyond normal limits through Noah's products, struck the ground with impacts that created small craters and sent tremors through the earth beneath her feet. "Leo, this is worse than I thought," Lola said with growing worry, her protective instincts overriding everything else as she witnessed the true scale of destruction that Noah's enhancement items had made possible. The war had evolved beyond anything the kingdoms had experienced in their decades of conflict, transforming into something that threatened the very foundations of the Elven magical society. Bodies continued falling as Lola watched. Meanwhile, Noah had already departed the resort and made his way higher up the mountain slopes. The need for solitude had become overwhelming. He wanted distance from everyone and everything for some time. The mountain paths provided the isolation he craved at the moment. Ichigo spotted him during his ascent, approaching with his usual friendly energy before noticing something different in Noah's demeanor. "Hey Noah, where are you going? I was wondering if—" "Sorry Ichigo, I need to be alone right now," Noah interrupted with a tired tone that carried none of his usual energy. Ichigo immediately recognized the change in his new friend's mood, his built-in social sensors detecting distress that went beyond simple pre-competition nerves that Noah never showed. While naturally outgoing and persistent in most situations, Ichigo possessed enough intelligence to understand when pushing would cause harm rather than help. "All right, man. Take care of yourself. I will see you around," Ichigo replied with respectful understanding, stepping aside to let Noah continue his solitary journey. Noah reached a peak that offered panoramic views of the surrounding landscape. His enhanced physique made the climb easy despite the steep terrain, while his wind manipulation abilities provided additional assistance. The summit wasn't particularly distant from the resort, but it felt removed from human concerns and complications that had been weighing on his conscience. At the mountain's peak, Noah settled onto a flat stone outcropping and gazed across the vista spread before him. Rolling hills, distant forests, and clear sky that provided natural tranquility that helped ease the mind from its worries. He closed his eyes and allowed his mind to drift. He wasn't mourning, nor was he shocked anymore. He had already accepted the fact that his previous actions were a catalyst. His current actions were simply to ease his mind. Time passed unmeasured as Noah found the mental quiet he needed, his high constitution requiring less rest while providing deeper restoration than normal meditation could achieve. A familiar notification eventually broke through his contemplative state, pulling his consciousness back to immediate concerns. "Your swordsmanship skill has reached level 12. The idol room had completed its expensive training cycle, providing advancement that would have required 4 hours of personal practice with the manual. Noah absorbed the new insights and techniques that accompanied the skill increase, feeling his understanding of sword combat deepen in subtle but meaningful ways. While the advancement didn't represent a major breakthrough like achieving a new rank, the accumulated improvements strengthened his overall combat capabilities and provided foundation for future development. Seeing the notification reminded Noah that training still awaited him. Rather than dwelling on problems he couldn't control, he could focus on improving abilities that might help him handle future challenges more effectively. He withdrew the Tier 5 wind orb from his dimensional storage, settling back into meditative position to work on his elemental manipulation skills. The familiar weight of the artifact and its contained essence provided comfort through routine practice that had proven successful before. Noah sank his mind into the orb's swirling wind energies, allowing his mana to synchronize with the wind element, while his understanding expanded through concentrated study and application. The mountain peak provided an ideal environment for such training, with natural air currents and open space that complemented his elemental focus without distractions from human activity. Nearly 4 hours passed in dedicated practice as Noah pushed his wind manipulation capabilities toward new levels of sophistication and control. The training provided both skill advancement and time passing, transforming troubled thoughts into productive development. When he finally opened his eyes, another satisfying notification confirmed his progress. Your skill wind manipulation has reached level 11. The advancement brought Noah better control over the wind element and deeper understanding of wind magic's potential applications in both combat and utility situations. Noah felt significantly better than when he'd arrived at the peak. After advancing his wind manipulation skill, Noah decided not to stop his productive training session. Feeling motivated by his increase in strength, he chose to continue with another discipline that required different types of focus. This time he concentrated on his body tempering skill, a practice that demanded both physical and mental endurance in ways that elemental manipulation did not. Unlike his other magical skills which relied on comprehension, body tempering required Noah to push his physique through stress and recovery cycles while maintaining precise mental control over the process. The technique was exhausting on multiple levels, forcing him to balance physical exertion with concentrated willpower. The mountain peak provided an ideal environment for such demanding training. Whether it's the weather or the tranquility that ensured he wouldn't be interrupted. For grueling hours later, Noah received another advancement notification that validated his dedication to improvement. Your body tempering skill has reached level 11. The advancement brought him closer to stronger physical resilience, improved recovery rates, and higher attributed. After completing his body tempering progression, Noah stood up from his training position with satisfaction at the productive use of his emotional processing time. Night had already settled over the mountain landscape, with the sun having disappeared behind the distant peak an hour earlier. The moonlight illuminated the mountain paths with silver radiance that made navigation possible despite the darkness, while his vision provided additional clarity for safe descent. Noah decided it was time to return to the resort. His extended training session had successfully bore fruit and he was getting closer to his goals. Noah began his descent under the moonlit sky, feeling significantly more centered than when he had climbed to seek solitude. The combination of skill advancement and quiet reflection had restored his emotional balance while strengthening his capabilities for handling future challenges. The resort's lights appeared below as Noah made his way down the familiar paths from earlier. Despite the sun having set, Noah discovered quite a few tournament participants still engaged in training and practice sessions around the resort training grounds. The dedicated competitors were using every available moment to refine their techniques before tomorrow's crucial quarterfinal matches. As Noah made his way toward his room, one of the competitors approached him with obvious interest in extending an invitation. Noah could see that man was enthusiastic and friendly. "Hey Noah, want to join us for some group training? We've got a good thing going over here." Unlike the competitor's previous casual dismissals of him as an unknown competitor that was bound to leave early, the participants had clearly recognized his capabilities after witnessing his dominant performance during the elimination rounds. "Thanks for the offer, but I'm going to pass. I need some rest before tomorrow," Noah replied with polite but firm declining. The competitor shrugged his shoulders with acceptance before returning to his training partner, who had been observing the exchange with obvious disapproval. "Can't believe he turned that down," acting all highest and mighty when he's not even favored to win. The second man said with an irritated voice and a frown etched on his face. His voice held resentment that came from someone who clearly held some envy in his heart. Whilst he didn't want to believe it, Noah could most likely eliminate him from the tournament if they faced each other. Any training is beneficial at this level. The second competitor continued with growing criticism at Noah's choice. That attitude is going to come back to bite him tomorrow when he faces real competition. The man who had extended the invitation raised his hand to cut off his partner's complaints. It's fine, just let him be. Everyone has their own preparation methods. We should focus on ourselves instead of worrying about other people's training decisions. But Hiroshi, with his brows knitted together, Hiroshi interrupted him. No buts. Criticizing other competitors won't make us any stronger. Let's get back to work on our own techniques. The guy grumbled under his breath but returned his attention to their practice routine, clearly still bothered by what he perceived as Noah's arrogant rejection of their generous offer. Noah continued toward his quarters, overhearing enough of their conversation to understand their perspective, while feeling no obligation to justify his personal preparation choices to his competitors. Group practice sessions seemed unnecessary for his current state of readiness. Once Noah arrived at his room, the sound of footsteps in the corridor prompted Ichigo to emerge from his adjacent quarters. Hey, just wanted to make sure you knew. The tournament starts at the same time tomorrow morning, in case you missed the announcements while you were out. Noah nodded with genuine appreciation for the gesture, recognizing the thoughtfulness behind Ichigo's reminder, even though he had already been aware of the schedule. Thanks for letting me know, Noah replied. I appreciate you thinking of that. Ichigo studied Noah's face for a moment, noting that his friend seemed to be in a better mood than when they had encountered each other on the mountain path earlier. You seem better than before. Whatever you needed to work through up there, I hope it helped, Ichigo said directly, unlike others who would just avoid the conversation. It did. Sometimes you need distance from everything. Makes sense, Ichigo agreed. Mountain air has a way of clearing your head. Plus, tomorrow's going to be intense. The quarterfinals separate the serious competitors from everyone else. Noah recognized the truth in that assessment, understanding that his next opponent would likely possess power that exceeded anything he had seen during the elimination rounds. I can't wait to see who I'm facing. They'll post the matchups in the morning, Ichigo said. But whoever it is, they'll be good. Nobody makes it the quarterfinals without legitimate skill. The acknowledgement coming from Ichigo carried respect for their remaining competition rather than overconfidence about his own advancement. Well, I should get some rest, Noah said, preparing to enter his room. Tomorrow will require everything we've got. Same here, Ichigo agreed. Sleep well, and may the best swordsman win. Inside his room, Noah didn't rest like he had told Ichigo or the other competitors. Instead, he felt compelled to return to his shop and check on the situation that had been weighing on his mind. The civil war between the elves was growing increasingly complicated, and he would be a terrible shopkeeper if he left Lola and Leo alone during such dangerous times. While the shop's magical protections would certainly defend them against any foolish attacks from the elves, Noah still didn't want to abandon them during such dire circumstances. Before departing, Noah made a quick call to his father, who hadn't heard from him today. Alan asked various questions about the tournament experience, the food he was eating, and they shared the kind of normal father-son conversation that grounded Noah in familiar warmth. After ending that call, he replied to Ethan's message before deciding it was time to return. With a conscious thought, the portal materialized before him, and he stepped through. Arriving inside the shop, Noah found Lola and Leo positioned by the window, observing whatever was happening outside with obvious concern. Sensing his arrival, Lola immediately turned to face him, abandoning her surveillance despite the importance of whatever she had been monitoring. She smiled upon seeing his face, recognizing that he was no longer carrying the emotional burden that had weighed him down earlier. Welcome back, boss. Took you some time, just 16 hours, she said with gentle teasing that carried underlying relief at his return. Noah scratched the back of his head with a slightly embarrassed sigh. My bad. I needed some time alone. Thank you for your words earlier. They really helped me process everything. She nodded with understanding before a look of concern appeared on her face. Anytime, but you might want to see this. Her gaze returned to the window, and Noah followed her line of sight. The view that greeted him resembled something from an apocalyptic nightmare. The area beyond his immediate surroundings had been completely transformed into a wasteland littered with bodies. How did this happen? Noah asked with growing horror at the scale of destruction. Lola began her narration. After you left, the fighting escalated beyond anything I've seen. They fought each other relentlessly, each fighter following his opponent until one of them died. She gestured toward specific areas of devastation visible through the window. Those grandmasters began using stronger spells with a large area of effect. What made things worse is, I know. Noah interrupted her before nodding his head. He knew that his items had made these grandmasters have the ability to cast their powerful spells more than once, which made the devastation even worse. Her voice carried growing concern as she continued. But the real tragedy began when massive numbers of master-level reinforcements arrived from both kingdoms. Noah kept a straight face as he listened to Lola's words. Whilst he was slightly affected, it wasn't to the point that his judgment would be affected. He maintained a neutral position on the ongoing war. Sure, his items had amplified their powers, but the war was inevitable between these two kingdoms. Ultimately, the devastation that they had caused was in their own hands. He hadn't forced them to fight for the item, nor did he force them to use the items to destroy each other. She pointed toward a particularly devastated section of the battlefield. Within those 16 hours, both sides had lost most of their master-level forces, or at least the ones that were sent. With a calm but curious expression, Noah said, "There's one thing I still want to know. What happened to the luxurious smoothie? Do you know?" Lola shook her head. "I'm not sure," she admitted, her voice low. "But I believe the Dark Elves might have managed to bring it to their leader." Noah's brows rose for the first time. He couldn't believe that the Light Elves allowed the Dark Elves to deliver the item to their leader. "Why do you think that?" Her tail gave a slight flick as she recalled the moment. "After an hour of watching the fighting outside, I realized something quite obvious. I was too weak. If things escalated and you were caught in it, I wouldn't be able to protect you the way I should. So I chose to stay inside and practice. I focused on strengthening myself whilst waiting for your return." Her eyes hardened, the memory clearly vivid. "But then, during my training, I sensed them. Two overwhelming auras are pressing down on the neutral zone. Their powers are above all of the grandmasters on the battlefield. I stopped immediately. It didn't take long to figure out who they were, the leaders of the Light and Dark Elf factions." Noah's expression remained unreadable, though the sharpness in his gaze betrayed his interest. "Go on." The Dark Elf leader was the first to act. He didn't want the fight to erupt here. Not sure about the reason, but he moved to draw the queen away. The Light Elf queen reacted instantly and pursued him. Her speed was incredibly fast. She certainly used your energy drink to increase her speed. But, nonetheless, she cut through the air so fast that none of her own people could follow, not even the Archimages. In seconds, the two of them vanished from sight. Lola's ears lowered slightly. After that, there was nothing. I don't know what became of them or of the smoothie, but I believe the Dark Elf leader truly carried it. Then the Queen's pursuit would make sense. After hearing Lola's perspective on the fight that had occurred while he was away, Noah had a few guesses. Lord Regent Darien had most likely lured the Queen to fight for the item away from her grandmasters. As for the reason why the Queen had fallen to his trick, Noah wasn't sure. But either way, Lola was right about one thing. They were both too weak, and without the shop, they were sheep waiting to be slaughtered. His gaze turned towards the shelf where the items had been stocked. Restocked during his absence. The inventory displayed his newest additions. Rose Petal Candy X8. Luxury Fruit Smoothie X8. The other items had been fully restocked since they were already somewhat stocked before the auction chaos had begun. Noah walked to the shelf and selected 3 portions of the premium items, one rose petal candy and one luxury smoothie for each of his companions, plus a set for himself. He returned to where Lola and Leo were positioned by the window, both watching his actions with obvious curiosity about his intentions. "Here you go," Noah said, extending the items toward both his companions. Leo happily accepted the enhancement items from his father with a small but grateful roar. "Thank you, Papa. These look really delicious." "You're welcome, Leo," Noah replied with genuine warmth, reaching out to ruffle the young lion's golden mane with paternal affection. Noah then turned to face Lola, who was staring at the offered items with obvious hesitation rather than Leo's immediate acceptance. Her ruby eyes flickered between the luxury enhancements and Noah's face, internal conflict playing across her facial features as she processed the value of what he was offering. This had become a normal thing by now. He would always offer her things, and she would always reject. "Noah, these items are incredibly valuable," she said with reluctant protest. "The rose petal candy alone is worth thousands of golden coins, and the luxury smoothie, that's worth too much to be given away like this." Her voice carried genuine concern about accepting such expensive gifts, despite their close relationship and the care he had shown her previously on multiple occasions. What made her also feel that she didn't deserve it was that she truly didn't know Noah's intentions in regards to her. Was she just an employee? Would a day come when he would dismiss her from the job? Noah signed before gently insisting, "Just take them. Consider it a bonus gift from your boss. After everything we've been through today, you both deserve these enhancements. Just like you said earlier, we are weak and we need to be strong." Lola continued hesitating, her usual confidence wavering in the face of such generosity that went beyond normal employment compensation. "But," "No buts, your safety and strength matter more than the monetary value. Besides, what good are these items if they can't help the people I care about?" Noah interrupted with firm kindness. Lola reluctantly accepted the items, her hands trembling slightly as she processed the weight of his continued generosity toward her well-being. Without warning, she stood on her tiptoes and placed a soft kiss on Noah's cheek, her lips barely brushing his skin before she pulled back. Noah stood momentarily stunned by the unexpected gesture. The kiss hadn't been entirely unexpected, given their growing closeness, but the timing and gentle nature of it caught him completely off guard, leaving him speechless as he processed what had just occurred between them. Noah recovered from his initial surprise quickly, a small smile crossing his face as he met Lola's eyes. The gesture had been sweet and unexpected, but he wasn't about to act over the top for a simple kiss on the cheek. He didn't want to think too much about their relationship. He understood that this was probably from her succubus nature, and nothing more. "Well, that was certainly a thank you," Noah said with gentle amusement, his tone carrying warmth rather than awkwardness. "Now, shall we try these new items?" "I'm excited," Noah suggested, unwrapping his rose petal candy with anticipation for its effect. The three companions had decided to consume the rose petal candy first, saving the better item for last. They consumed their candies simultaneously, and Noah's eyes widened as the flavor hit his palate. The taste was extraordinary, layers of sweetness that seemed to bloom across his tongue with complexity that exceeded even his other items. "This is incredible, it has the perfect texture and sweetness," Noah said with genuine appreciation that no aspect was overpowering in the taste, creating a perfect blend that made the experience something from another world, which ironically, it was. The sweetness carries notes of jasmine and cherry blossoms, Lola added with obvious delight, her refined palate detecting subtleties that spoke to the candy's production. Leo roared softly with contentment. "This is the best thing Father has ever fed me. It's really good." Noah nodded his head in agreement. With both of them, whilst the idea of eating flowers certainly wasn't pleasing, a human couldn't understand it unless they tasted it themselves. As the enhancement effects began manifesting almost immediately after consumption, Noah felt the transformation occurring throughout his body. His muscles tightened and defined themselves more clearly. His hair gained fuller texture and a better natural shine, and his facial features seemed to sharpen into much more appealing proportions. The 50-point vitality increase flooded through his body, making him feel more alive and vibrant than ever before. But most notably, a subtle floral scent began emanating from all three of them, a calming fragrance that filled the shop with tranquil ambience. Noah couldn't help but stare at Lola as her own transformation completed. She had always been the most beautiful woman he'd ever encountered, but now her enhanced charm made her absolutely breathtaking. Her already perfect features had gained an ethereal quality that made it difficult to look away. "Well, well," Lola said with that familiar teasing smile, having noticed his obvious admiration at her beauty. "Someone's looking quite handsome now. I might have to start charging customers just to look at you." Noah recovered his composure and returned her playful banter. "Says the woman who just became so stunning that she could probably end wars just by asking nicely. I'm starting to think I gave you an unfair advantage. I can't let others see you." "Why is that?" she asked, the soft smile on her lips making her even more beautiful. "Because an innocent soul might die from taking a look at you." Lola chuckled softly at his response. After finishing the rose petal candy, Noah looked at the remaining enhancement item with anticipation. "Time to try the best item in the store," he announced with growing excitement. "I hope I can awaken a new skill, though I wonder what ability it could possibly be." Noah raised his smoothie container. "Cheers." All three companions lifted their drinks and consumed the luxury enhancement simultaneously. Leo was the first to finish the smoothie and experience its transformative effects. His body began shining with visible radiance. "Papa!" Leo roared with excitement as power coursed through his young body. "I feel incredible. Like I could hunt anything." Lola closed her eyes in pure ecstasy as the smoothie's flavors overwhelmed her enhanced senses. The taste was so extraordinary that it defied comparison. Neither energy drinks nor iced tea had prepared her for such perfection. "This is beyond anything I imagined possible," she breathed with genuine awe. "Every flavor note is perfectly balanced, just like the rose petal. The fruits are incredibly sweet and delicious too." Noah experienced the same overwhelming sensory pleasure as the smoothie delivered taste that transcended normal culinary. But more importantly, he felt the massive attribute increases flooding through his physiology. All three companions gained 30 points each to both agility and strength, creating a surge of physical capability that transformed their bodies in real time. Noah felt his reflexes sharpen dramatically while his muscular system adapted to handle significantly increased power output. The improvement represented a massive enhancement to their combat effectiveness and general physical capabilities. Noah's strength had reached levels that bordered on superhuman even by magical world standards. But the attribute bonuses were only the beginning. As the smoothie's skill-awakening properties began manifesting, Noah felt its effects. Meanwhile, outside their sanctuary, two kingdoms had literally fought to the death over access to this exact enhancement. Master-level practitioners had been slaughtered by the dozens. Ancient grudges had escalated into apocalyptic warfare, and entire landscapes had been permanently scarred by the conflict. Yet Noah had distributed these priceless items to his companions as casually as sharing snacks, treating enhancement worth tens of thousands of golden coins as expressions of care and friendship. The irony wasn't lost on him. Items that he treated like snacks because of their abundance in the system were items to wage war that would kill grandmasters. "You have awakened the skill photographic memory, level 1. Staring at the skill notification that had just appeared, Noah felt genuine satisfaction at the development. While the ability was only at the initial level, photographic memory represented exactly the kind of cognitive enhancement that could provide long-term benefits across multiple areas of his life. The fact that the skill had awakened rather than being learned suggested it had been dormant within his neural pathways, waiting for the right stimulus to manifest. The luxury smoothie had successfully triggered capabilities that had existed as potential rather than active abilities. "Photographic memory," Noah said aloud, testing how the words felt. "That's going to be useful for my next plans." Even at level 1, the skill would allow him to retain visual information with much better clarity, creating a faster record of important details that normal memory might distort or lose over time. Because his skill was only level 1, Noah didn't experience the full effect. He felt his memory grow much faster and better than before, but it wasn't to the point that it was like a picture. So Noah understood that he needed to train the skill more to gain its full capability. Lola and Leo were experiencing their own transformations from the smoothie's effects, their enhanced attributes and whatever skills they might have awakened, creating a collective improvement that made their small group significantly more capable than they had been minutes before. What did you two gain? Noah asked with curiosity about their individual results from the skill awakening process. Their enhancement had approximately cost nearly 40,000 golden coins. It was by no means cheap, but the actual value of permanent attribute increases and skill awakening capabilities made even that astronomical price seem cheap when compared to the long-term benefits they provided. Before Leo could share what enhancement he had gained from the luxury fruit smoothie, the young lion's eyelids grew heavy as the familiar exhaustion from rapid growth overtook him. Just like during his previous enhancement experiences, Leo collapsed into deep sleep, his contented purring filling the shop with gentle rumbling. Noah and Lola smiled at the predictable scene, recognizing that Leo's body required rest to properly integrate whatever new capabilities he had developed. New skill? Lola asked with curious interest, noting Noah's satisfied expression. Noah nodded. Yeah, though not an offensive or defensive one, just an auxiliary ability that should prove useful. She acknowledged his response before sharing her own results with obvious excitement. I gained a new skill too, actually. It's quite powerful and relates directly to my fire element affinity. Really? That's impressive. Congratulations. What does it do? Noah asked with genuine curiosity about her enhancement. Fire wings, Lola explained with growing enthusiasm. The skill increases my agility, strength, and fire magical power while granting me the ability to fly. It's remarkably versatile. Noah looked at her with undisguised envy at such a comprehensive combat enhancement. That's an incredible skill. I wish I had awakened something similar with my wind element manipulation. The ability to fly combined with enhanced physical attributes and elemental power represented exactly the kind of ability that Noah sought. Ever since he saw the king fly during their expedition to Charles's place, and Noah had wanted such a skill. You'll develop something even stronger soon enough, Lola replied with confident reassurance. Your rate of improvement is unreal. Most practitioners spend decades reaching capabilities you've achieved in days. Your power is also much higher than that of those stronger than you, which is even more impressive. Her observation carried its weight in gold. She was a powerful archmage with extensive experience. The contrast between their respective skill awakenings highlighted how the luxury smoothies effects varied based on individual potential and affinities, creating unique enhancements tailored to each person's capabilities. Host: Noah Carter, age 28, shop level 2. Daily revenue: $2,153,000 or equivalent. Current assets: $6,810,840. Shop points: 26,330. Attributes: strength 90, vitality 110, intelligence 60, agility 90. Skills: Level 12 Smiley Face Swordsmanship. Level 11 Smiley Face Body Tempering Wind Manipulation. Level 10 Smiley Face Mana Control Aura. Level 3 Smiley Face Surviving on Ramen, Cooking, Finance, Gaming. Level 2 Smiley Face Programming. Level 1 Smiley Face Photographic Memory. Noah reviewed his updated status with satisfaction. The attribute imbalances didn't concern him. His intelligence lagged behind his physical capabilities, but that discrepancy would resolve itself through consumption of his shop items. He still possessed 2 premium items that would address this exact issue. The instant coffee would provide 30 intelligence points along with mental attack immunity and doubled comprehension speed. The mystical herbal tea would add 30 vitality points while granting spiritual sight and toxin purification abilities. His daily revenue had also increased substantially due to the new idle income streams established through the auction sales. Over $2 million per day was something that Noah had never believed could ever happen before the system. I should consume these remaining enhancements while we have time. I will also practice after using them to get their full benefits, Noah said, retrieving the instant coffee and herbal tea from his dimensional storage. The intelligence boost from the coffee will help balance my attributes, and the additional vitality can't hurt, given the dangers outside. The mystical herbal tea's spiritual sight ability would prove particularly valuable for detecting threats that normal perception might miss, while the coffee's mental attack immunity could protect against magical influence attempts. Combined with his new photographic memory skill, these enhancements would create a comprehensive suite of cognitive and perceptual abilities that complemented his existing physical and magical capabilities. Smart thinking, you should take advantage of the items and get their full benefits. I will also join you on the training. She withdrew instant coffee and mystical herbal tea from her storage ring, consuming both enhancements without hesitation. The different magical compounds didn't contradict each other in taste or effect, instead creating a complementary effect that enhanced her cognitive and spiritual capabilities simultaneously. After experiencing the same temporary attribute boosts and ability gains as Noah, both settled into focused training positions within the shop's protective boundaries. Noah concentrated on his mana control skill, using the enhanced intelligence from the instant coffee to process magical theory with unprecedented clarity. His photographic memory helped him remember and imprint the new knowledge somewhat faster, while his doubled comprehension speed accelerated his understanding exponentially. Lola retrieved the fire orb he had gifted her, channeling her newly awakened fire wings skill to maximize the training benefits. The combination of enhanced intelligence and her natural fire affinity created optimal conditions for elemental mastery. 10 minutes later, Lola carefully stored the orb and shifted to internal meditation, focusing on integrating the fire-based abilities she had just awakened. The brief but intensive orb training had provided sufficient foundation, and now she needed to comprehend the full scope of what she had gained. As she settled into deeper contemplation, her ruby eyes drifted toward Noah with a soft gaze that carried emotions she rarely allowed herself to acknowledge fully. Watching him train with such dedication and focus stirred feelings inside her. His generosity continued to amaze her, casually distributing items worth fortunes while treating her safety and growth as a higher priority. The way he had immediately shared the most valuable enhancements in his inventory demonstrated a level of care that she had never experienced from anyone. The fact still stood, even if Noah had an abundance of such items, because nobody had the treatment she was getting, not even Leo. The enhanced charm from the rose petal candy had only amplified what she already felt, making it harder to maintain the playful distance that had characterized their earlier interactions. But more than physical attraction, she found herself drawn to his character. The moral struggles he wrestled with, his genuine concern for unintended consequences. Lola's archmage perception allowed her to observe the subtle changes in his magical aura as he trained, noting how his various skills were always rapidly improving. When it came to Noah, she didn't believe that bottlenecks existed. He was always breaking through strength ranks like they were nothing. His potential seemed limitless, yet he remained grounded in principles that prevented power from corrupting his judgment. The contrast between Noah's approach to enhancement and the devastating warfare outside highlighted everything she had grown to respect about him. Where others used power for domination, he used it to protect and nurture those under his care. Her feelings had evolved far beyond the initial intrigue that had drawn her to his shop, developing into something deeper that she wasn't quite ready to name or act upon directly. For a full hour, Noah experienced the combined effects of doubled comprehension, spiritual sight, and enhanced focus. The synergy between the instant coffee and mystical herbal tea created an acceleration that transformed his training efficiency beyond anything he had previously experienced. What would normally require 4 hours of dedicated practice to increase a skill at level 10 by a level has been compressed into a single hour. The combination hadn't just doubled his advancement speed, it had quadrupled it through the interaction of multiple cognitive enhancements working in harmony. The results were staggering. During that single hour of intensified training, Noah achieved advancement across multiple skills. Your skill mana control has reached level 11. Your skill aura has reached level 11. Your skill photographic memory has reached level 2. Noah stared at the notifications with growing excitement and, admittedly, a surge of greed at the results. If using these 2 items could produce such dramatic results, Imagine what continued use of these two items could do. At this rate, he could level up a skill from level 10 to level 15 in only 5 hours. The temptation to immediately consume another set of premium items was overwhelming. His mind calculated the potential returns: more advanced skills, higher attribute levels, and the ability to reach adept rank in no time if he focused on his swordsmanship. The feeling that the two items had given him was surreal. Everything felt so enhanced that he somewhat missed his previous state of mind and body. His photographic memory had evolved to level 2, making his memory even better than before. The combination of enhancements had created a feedback loop where each ability reinforced the others, producing advancement that exceeded the sum of their individual effects. Still, Noah did not consume them again. As for the reason, it was because he wanted to sell more of them, not just because he wanted to gain more golden coins, but because of the progress bar of the automaker, the progress towards a level 3 shop and unlocking more powerful items. Sure, using one or two of these enhancement items occasionally was beneficial, but overuse would certainly become counterproductive. He already possessed an idle room that advanced one of his higher-level skills daily, and his natural practice yielded additional progress. The combination provided sustainable development without the need to use his shop items to accelerate his already terrifying speed. After their enhancement effects expired, Noah ceased his training session. Opening his eyes, he discovered Lola remained deep in her meditative state, still integrating the fire-based abilities she had awakened. He couldn't help but observe her flawless features: the elegant curve of her lips, the graceful line of her revealed neck, and the serene beauty of her concentrated expression. The rose petal candy had enhanced what was already extraordinary, making her even more captivating than before. Their relationship had grown increasingly complex over time. Her actions suggested genuine affection that extended beyond playful flirtation, but she had maintained a certain ambiguity in her approach since their first meeting. To assume she had developed romantic feelings from their initial encounter would be presumptuous, yet denying their evolving connection would be equally foolish. Noah turned to check on Leo, who continued sleeping peacefully, his enhanced growth requiring extended rest to get accustomed to his new power. Suddenly, two overwhelming auras manifested with such intensity that Noah sensed them immediately. Not due to his high perception, but because they weren't attempting to conceal their presence whatsoever. Lola's eyes snapped open as she sprang to her feet with alarm, clearly having sensed the same auras as Noah. Whether the auras had disrupted her concentration or she was always attentive remained unknown. "They're here, the leaders of both elven factions." Noah nodded at her words instantly, having guessed that, and moved to the window for visual confirmation. Through the reinforced glass, he witnessed a scene of desperate pursuit. Queen Seraphina was racing toward his territorial boundaries with obvious intent to claim sanctuary, while Lord Regent Darien followed behind, a maniacal expression contorting his features as he prepared to strike before she could reach safety. The Dark Elf leader bore some bruises and injuries from their prolonged battle, but Queen Seraphina appeared far worse. One arm hung loosely at her side, blood matted her golden hair, and her face showed the strain of someone pushed beyond their limits. The Light Elves immediately recognized their queen's desperate strategy. In fact, everyone at the scene did. Queen Seraphina was attempting to reach Noah's neutral zone, where attacking her would risk triggering conflict with the mysterious shopkeeper and his powerful succubus companion. "Hurry! Protect the queen. Let her reach safety," the Light Elves shouted as they abandoned their current battles to form a protective corridor toward the neutral boundary. The Dark Elves realized the tactical situation and responded with vicious glee at their apparent victory. "You're not going anywhere," one shouted before launching a devastating attack at a Light Elf master's unprotected back. The targeted practitioner crashed to the ground with critical injuries, his body smoking from the enhanced magical assault that had exploited his moment of distraction. Similar scenes erupted across the battlefield as Light Elves attempted to disengage and provide escort for their wounded queen. Some succeeded in breaking away from combat, but many found themselves trapped by Dark Elf opponents who pressed their advantages ruthlessly. "You thought you could turn your back on me?" Another Dark Elf taunted while binding a Light Elf with shadow magic. "Your queen will die before she reaches that human's protection. Darkness has finally overcome light." All hail the king! The desperate running battle intensified as both factions recognized this moment as potentially decisive for their entire conflict. If Queen Seraphina reached Noah's sanctuary, she might survive to fight another day. If Lord Regent Darien caught her before the boundary, the light elf leadership would be eliminated permanently. Enhanced magical attacks lit up the battlefield as the pursuit reached its climax, with both rulers operating at power levels that exceeded anything their followers could match. The luxury smoothies effects had transformed the king into a force that made the queen of the light elves run for her life. Whether he had awakened a dormant skill or improved one of his existing ones remained unknown for the time being. Noah watched with growing tension as the chase approached his territorial limits, understanding that whatever occurred in the next few moments would determine whether his careful neutrality could survive the conclusion of this conflict. Lola turned toward Noah with urgent concern. "What are you going to do with them? Are you going to defend her?" Noah looked at Lola for a moment before nodding with grim determination. "I have to defend her. I've made my territorial rules clear. If I back down now, they'll think I'm a pushover. Not only will they try to attack us directly, but they'll boycott our store and prevent the light elves from making future purchases, assuming any survive this massacre." He paused, watching as Lord Regent Darien eliminated grandmasters who attempted to interfere with his pursuit of the queen. "But territorial defense is the most I'll do. I'll protect her once she crosses the boundary, but I won't save her people or even consider leaving the shop's protection. He's far too powerful for direct confrontation." Noah's assessment was coldly practical as he observed the Dark Elf leader's devastating efficiency against opponents who could level the human capital of Esta. "He's probably at peak Grandmaster rank, or he's already entered the next tier, right?" Noah asked with growing concern about the power differential they were facing. Lola nodded with serious acknowledgement. "He's definitely one or the other. The ease with which he's dispatching those grandmasters suggests he's at that level of power." Her assessment gave more weight to Noah's, as someone who had recently held grandmaster rank herself and understood the vast gulf between normal practitioners and whatever Lord Regent Darien had become through his recent consumption. Queen Seraphina stumbled forward desperately. Her enhanced speed from the multiple items she had consumed the only thing keeping her ahead of certain death. Behind her, the screams of her most loyal subjects filled the air as they sacrificed themselves to buy her precious seconds. "Your Majesty, run!" shouted an archmage before Lord Regent Darien's shadow magic tore through his defenses like paper. "Foolish insects!" Darien snarled, his voice carrying boundless rage as he cut down another grandmaster with casual brutality. "You think your pathetic lives can save her? I'll kill every last one of you." A light elf master attempted to flank the Dark Lord, only to be obliterated by a blast of pure darkness. "Your queen doesn't care about your life. She only cares about her own. Stop being foolish and wake up. Protect Her Majesty." Elena cried out, throwing herself between Darien and another fleeing grandmaster. Her abilities from Noah's items allowed her to briefly match his speed, but not his overwhelming power. "Elena, no!" Seraphina gasped, seeing her most trusted advisor about to be slaughtered. Darien's laughter was pure madness as he sent a ball of darkness towards Elena. Seeing that Elena was protecting him, the fleeing grandmaster stopped and threw his strongest attack at the orb in an attempt to stop it. The attack didn't stop the orb, but it slowed it down, allowing Elena to form a shield around herself to minimize the damage. Luckily, the shield was indeed able to reduce the damage, but its remaining power still threw Elena like a ragdoll. The boundary line appeared ahead, mere meters from safety. Seraphina's legs trembled as blood loss weakened her body. She had lost and regenerated tens of liters of blood, and it was starting to take a toll on her, even as someone at her level of power. "Almost there, Your Majesty!" A surviving master shouted before Darien's shadow spear pierced his chest. D. Darien roared, his gains from the luxury smoothie and other items making him a force of pure destruction. "You all deserve to die. You are nothing but invasive insects that destroy our holy land." 3 more master-level light elves threw themselves at the Dark Lord in a final desperate gambit. "Go, Your Majesty!" Reach the boundary. Worthless vermin. Nothing will stop me from beheading that queen of yours. Darian's power erupted outward, vaporizing all three simultaneously. Seraphina stumbled on the final steps toward Noah's territorial protection, her body fatigued from blood loss and exhaustion. The neutral zone's line beckoned like salvation itself. But Darian was already raising his hand for the killing blow, shadow magic coalescing into a spear of pure death that he aimed at her heart. "You're mine!" he shrieked with triumphant fury as he threw the spear. Queen Seraphina's body shook from the powerful aura she felt building up behind her back. But she didn't dare look back or waste any time. The dark spear flew through the air with devastating force, striking Queen Seraphina just as she crossed the 1-kilometer boundary of Noah's territorial protection. The shadow magic penetrated her stomach area with a sickening impact, her eyes dilating in shock as the blow sent her flying several hundred meters deeper into the neutral zone. Boom! The spear remained embedded in her torso, dark energy pulsing through the wound as she crashed to the ground within Noah's protected area, her blood splashing across the ground. Darian smirked with satisfaction at his successful strike. Finally! It's time for the harlot to finally die. The attack had severely wounded the queen, leaving her barely clinging to life as blood pooled beneath her crumpled body. Time was the only thing preventing her immediate death, and soon that will also run out. "Your Majesty!" Elena screamed from beyond the boundary, tears streaming down her bloodied face as she watched her queen dying. "No! Please! Someone help her!" She tried to run and protect the queen, but Kale stood before her with a huge smirk on his face. "This is the end. Today marks the day of our great victory over you. We shall celebrate this for millennia to come." Kale dashed forward towards Elena, wanting to kill the light elf that was his greatest nemesis. Grinding her teeth, Elena dashed to meet his attack head-on, wanting to eliminate him to protect her queen from imminent death. "You wish. Lightness will always prevail over darkness, whether you like it or not," she spat out, her voice shaking. The surviving light elf grandmasters could only watch in horror as their beloved ruler writhed in agony, completely unable to cross into the neutral zone to provide assistance as the dark elves stopped them. After the arrival of Darian, the tables have completely turned. Darian's killing of several light elf grandmasters has allowed the dark elves to gang up on the light elves and to eliminate them faster. The battle was incredibly favorable to the dark elves, and the light elves could no longer provide support to their dying queen. Darian slowly descended from the sky to the ground, his expression radiating anticipation as he prepared to finish what he had started. The boundary line wouldn't protect her from a second attack if she remained conscious long enough for him to strike again. Queen Seraphina, realizing her desperate situation, began shouting hysterically toward Noah's shop with the last of her failing strength. "Please, shopkeeper, I'll pay anything. Help me." To her amazement and desperate hope, the shop door opened and Lola emerged, immediately assessing the critical situation. Without hesitation, the succubus hurled a package of beef jerky with supernatural accuracy. Whoosh! The enhancement item flew at incredible speed, landing directly in Seraphina's trembling hand, her salvation. Recognizing her lifeline, the queen immediately tore open the packaging and devoured the magical jerky despite her grievous wounds. The vitality enhancement flooded through her system instantly, her constitution increasing by 50 points and restoring her to better condition than she had possessed before the battle. With newfound strength, Seraphina gripped the shadow spear and yanked it from her stomach, casting the weapon aside where it dissolved as Darian ceased channeling mana into the construct. Darian's expression darkened visibly as he witnessed his certain victory transform into a frustrating stalemate. His brow furrowed with anger as he turned toward the shop. "Human shopkeeper, what is this interference? I thought you weren't going to pick sides in our conflict," Darian called out. Noah stepped forward with firmness. Of course, he was still within his shop. He didn't dare to take chances against someone at Darian's power, hence why he told Lola to throw the item rather than give it. "You broke the territorial rules by fighting within my protected area. Your attack landed in the vicinity of my shop, which I had warned both factions about. I launched that spear before she reached your territory, Darien protested. The attack struck within my boundaries, Noah countered without backing down. Regardless of when you fired it, the impact occurred under my protection. That shows complete disrespect for the neutrality I've maintained. Queen Seraphina immediately scrambled toward the shop like a child running to protective parents, her survival instincts overriding any royal dignity as she sought shelter behind Noah's territorial authority. Thank you. I owe you my life, she gasped with profound gratitude. Noah didn't respond and simply stared at Darien, waiting for his next move. Darien stood motionless as several of his Grandmaster subordinates descended from the air to flank him, their expressions showing obvious displeasure at this unexpected development. My lord, we should eliminate both the queen and seize control of this shop. Kill them all and claim those mysterious items for ourselves. One whispered urgently in his ear, using his mana to hide any eavesdropping. The human has revealed his bias. Another subordinate hissed quietly. This is the perfect opportunity to remove all obstacles at once. We outnumber them, a third added with bloodthirsty eagerness. Strike now before they can prepare additional defenses. But Darien shook his head firmly despite his obvious frustration. No, we aren't going to do that. His subordinates exchanged confused glances at their leader's restraint, having expected immediate violent retaliation for this humiliating setback. Darien hadn't achieved leadership through reckless impulses. Despite his burning desire to eliminate both the queen and claim Noah's shop, he possessed enough wisdom to recognize the dangers inherent in such an approach. To protect Queen Seraphina after witnessing his enhanced power levels, the mysterious shopkeeper must possess considerable confidence in his own capabilities or hidden resources. Attacking blindly could trigger consequences that would devastate his kingdom. Rather than securing victory, he didn't want to commit a mistake he would regret forever. When victory was within reach, Elena called desperately from beyond the boundary. Please don't abandon Her Majesty. We'll serve faithfully if you show mercy. The surviving light elves watched with hope as their queen found sanctuary, though they remained trapped outside the protective zone where Darien's forces could eliminate them at will. The standoff had transformed from a certain victory into a crisis that would determine the fate of both kingdoms. Lord Darien looked at Noah with a cold smile spreading across his features. You are right, I should have ended this conflict much earlier. But I forgot how fundamentally cowardly these light elves truly are. Queen Seraphina's face flushed with indignation despite her weakened state. You didn't dare fight me before consuming that stolen enhancement. Now you act as though your borrowed power represents true strength. Her accusation carried the bitter sting of someone who recognized that artificial enhancement had tilted their balance of power rather than genuine superiority. Darien scoffed with dismissive arrogance. Stay cowering in your sanctuary, coward. I'll simply kill every single light elf in existence while you watch helplessly from behind your human protector. He paused, his expression shifting to a cruel smirk as he delivered his ultimatum. Unless, of course, you sacrifice yourself for the greater good of your people. Step outside this boundary and face me honorably, and I promise not to slaughter every light elf who surrenders themselves afterwards. Noah frowned at Darien's first statement, but the second revelation made the Dark Lord's strategy clear. He was applying psychological pressure to force the queen from sanctuary, understanding that if she did leave, then he would have killed the strongest light elf, and it would not be difficult to take over, and if she didn't, that might affect her subordinates' royalty and morale. The tactic was ruthlessly effective. Queen Seraphina couldn't remain in neutral territory indefinitely, making this sanctuary merely a temporary reprieve rather than a permanent solution. Darien was also demonstrating strategic intelligence by recognizing the queen's character weaknesses and exploiting them through emotional manipulation rather than direct assault. Turning toward the surviving light elves still engaged in desperate combat, Darien raised his voice with contemptuous authority. Look at yourselves, sacrificing your lives for a coward who abandons you to save herself. Truly pathetic display of misplaced loyalty. But rather than becoming disheartened by Darien's harsh words, the light elves grew more resolute in their convictions. Their queen's survival represented hope that their cause could continue despite devastating losses. "Don't listen to his poisonous lies," Seraphina called out with renewed strength, her voice carrying across the battlefield. "He spreads the same darkness that has consumed his soul. Everyone, immediately retreat to the safe area. He cannot attack you within the neutral zone." Her assessment was correct. If her surviving forces could reach Noah's territorial protection, they could regroup and plan their next moves without facing immediate annihilation. The remaining light elves began forming defensive formations as they attempted organized withdrawal toward Sanctuary. There was no strategic purpose in continuing combat now that the luxury smoothie was lost and their forces were being systematically eliminated. "Fall back to Her Majesty," Elena shouted, rallying the survivors. "Preserve our strength for another day." The light elves started making their coordinated retreat, but Darien had no intention of allowing such easy escape from consequences. "You think withdrawal will be so simple?" he snarled with malicious satisfaction. "I'll show you the price of defying the Shadowvale Dominion." Dark magic began coalescing around Darien's form as he prepared to demonstrate why retreat without victory carried its own devastating costs. The surviving light elves would need to fight their way to the sanctuary. Seeing that catastrophe was approaching and her kingdom might truly not survive this crisis, Queen Seraphina immediately turned toward Noah with desperation. Her royal dignity as a princess had become something akin to a legend. Standing before Noah, she had become a beggar. "Please, human shopkeeper," she pleaded with a trembling voice. "I'm certain you possess another powerful item like that enhancement the bastard consumed. Please, the light elves would be forever indebted to you. Without your involvement, our race might be wiped out by them." As she moved closer to him, Lola immediately stepped protectively between them with subtle but firm positioning. Her eyes were glaring at Seraphina intensely as if saying, "Don't come near what's mine." Recognizing the boundary she had crossed, the queen immediately backed away. "I apologize, I was just—" "It's fine," Noah interrupted gently before turning to address her directly. "I can sell it to you." Her eyes widened with immediate joy as hope flooded through her battered form. The possibility of survival had materialized when all seemed lost. But Darien's furious voice cut through her relief like a blade. "What does this mean, human shopkeeper? Are you certain you aren't taking sides in this conflict? Because your actions keep proving otherwise." Noah's frown deepened at Darien's persistent accusations. "For the final time, I'm not taking sides in your war. If you make that insinuation once more, I will seriously consider doing exactly that. You've already made multiple unfounded accusations, and I won't tolerate another." The threat alongside Noah's tone and facial expressions made even Darien pause to reconsider his approach. Darien studied Noah in tense silence before forcing restraint over his temper. "I apologize, human shopkeeper. This war has truly affected my judgment." But internally, Darien was seething with fury. He wanted to tear this presumptuous human apart for daring to speak with such authority to the leader of the superior dark elf race. The mysterious shopkeeper's condescending attitude was insufferable. However, Noah's unknown capabilities made direct confrontation inadvisable for now. The human would face consequences eventually, but timing mattered for successful revenge. Noah addressed both factions. "I previously informed both Kale and Elena that auction items would return to regular inventory at lower prices. Both factions remain free to purchase these items, but you cannot buy more than the other. A 1-to-1 ratio unless one side declines their allocation." Darien cast Kale a withering glare that sent visible shivers through his subordinate's spine. Kale immediately distanced himself from Elena before speaking with obvious terror. "Lord Darien, forgive me. The shopkeeper did mention this policy at the auction's conclusion, but I lacked opportunity to report it. We needed to deliver your item immediately, and with our apparent victory, it seemed unnecessary information." His expression radiated complete contrition as he awaited his leader's judgment for this oversight. Darien looked at Kale with a gaze that promised severe punishment would come later. The silent threat hung between them like an executioner's blade. Realizing the magnitude of his mistake and the inevitable consequences awaiting him, Kale felt mounting frustration that demanded an outlet. His eyes landed on the nearest available target for his displaced anger. "It's all your fault," Kale snarled at Elena, his voice dripping with venom as he glared at her with a wrathful expression. "If you hadn't been so persistent in the bidding, if your queen hadn't tried to steal what rightfully belonged to us, none of this would have happened." His finger jabbed accusingly in her direction as he bursted in explosive rage. "You light elves always acting so superior, so righteous. Look where your arrogance has led. Your queen bleeding and broken. Your people dying for her cowardice." Elena's green eyes flashed with indignation at the unprovoked verbal assault. "You dare blame us for your leader's brutality? We bid fairly in an open auction." "Fairly?" Kale laughed bitterly. "Nothing about this war has been fair since you started it decades ago. And now, because of your interference, I face punishment for circumstances beyond my control." The confrontation between subordinates reflected the larger conflict consuming both kingdoms. Noah ignored Kale and Elena's heated exchange before addressing both leaders with firm authority. "So, do you want to come inside? And let me warn both of you. Whoever breaks the peace will not only lose my services, but they will regret it deeply." Darian understood the warning was primarily directed at him, given his superior strength and aggressive pursuit of the queen. He nodded curtly before turning to address his subordinates with cold command. "You fools! Enough playing around. By the time I emerge from that store, I expect you to already be in their kingdom. Slaughter everyone. Leave nobody alive. Understood?" The Dark Elf Grandmasters straightened at their leader's command, their capabilities making them devastatingly effective instruments for such wholesale destruction. "Yes, my lord," they responded in unison before dispersing with supernatural speed toward Light Elf territories. Queen Seraphina's face went pale as she witnessed the deployment of forces that would massacre her defenseless kingdom while she remained trapped in negotiations. "You monster!" she whispered with horror at the cruelty of using diplomatic immunity to orchestrate genocide. Although she had called him a monster, deep down, Seraphina knew that if she had the chance to slaughter the Dark Elves, she would have done so long ago. "Humph! Don't blame me, I gave you a choice. You decided to sacrifice your kingdom for your worthless life. Not me. So deal with it. Whilst you shop, hundreds and thousands of light elves will die." Darian said coldly, the lack of mercy visible. Noah's expression hardened as he realized how Darian was exploiting his territorial protections to coordinate attacks while remaining immune from retaliation. The Dark Lord's intelligence was becoming increasingly apparent. He would use every available advantage, including Noah's neutrality rules, to achieve total victory through whatever means proved most effective. Seeing the deployment of forces toward her defenseless territories, Queen Seraphina turned to rally her remaining subordinates with words of encouragement. "Unlike that monster, I will awaken my dormant abilities and save you and our people. So, hold the line for our kingdom's sake, and don't you dare die on me. I'm coming." Seraphina read with the tone befitting a queen. Her words provided a crucial morale boost to the surviving light elves, who had witnessed their queen's apparent defeat transformed into opportunity for salvation. Without hesitation, Seraphina turned to Noah with urgency. "I would like to purchase everything available from your store." Noah looked at her without surprise. As a queen facing racial extinction, such a large order made perfect sense. The survival of her entire kingdom depended on maximizing every possible advantage. Once her kingdom was destroyed and she died, there would be no money left. So, spending money to buy items to help them wasn't a bad choice. He quickly calculated her purchasing limits based on his inventory and the 1-to-1 ratio policy. Currently stocked were 5 luxury smoothies and 5 rose petal candies, along with full inventory of other enhancement items. Under the fairness restrictions, he could sell her 2 luxury smoothies and 2 rose petal candies, plus half of everything else in his regular stock. He set the pricing at 10,000 golden coins for each luxury smoothie and 2,000 for each rose petal candy, maintaining the premium rates that such powerful items commanded. For the comprehensive purchase, she would receive 288 Tier 1 items. Bread and iced tea that formed the foundation of his business, along with 40 Tier 2 items encompassing everything from protein bars through his most advanced products. Her total came to 71,745 golden coins, a staggering sum that represented a decent portions of the Light Elf royal treasury, but provided enhancement capabilities that could determine her kingdom's survival. The astronomical figure made Noah feel genuinely satisfied about his business success, especially knowing that Darian would likely make an equivalent purchase immediately afterward. Serafina handed him a storage ring containing the complete payment, while he provided another ring filled with her purchased enhancements. The exchange was conducted with the efficiency befitting the desperate time constraints. Without waiting for diplomatic niceties or observing Darian's parallel transaction, she consumed the luxury smoothie first, followed rapidly by every other enhancement item. She clearly wanted to stack as many beneficial effects as possible, regardless of overlapping diminishing returns from similar enhancement types. The intelligence boosts from both iced tea and rice cakes wouldn't stack. Only the rice cake's temporary effect would count, but she prioritized speed over optimization given the ongoing slaughter of her people. Enhanced by dozens of magical improvements, Queen Serafina immediately took flight and departed at supernatural speed toward the battlefield, intent on eliminating as many Dark Elf forces as possible before Darian could complete his own enhancement purchases and join the conflict. Darian cursed internally at her head start before demanding urgently, "Hurry with my transaction, please." Darian added the please after watching the frowns on Lola's and Noah's faces. Noah and Lola completed the identical exchange within seconds. Although the delay between transactions lasted merely 2 seconds, that brief window proved catastrophically decisive given their combat speeds now possible. Queen Serafina's rapid speed allowed her to traverse vast distances and execute devastating attacks before Darian could complete his own enhancement consumption. She descended upon the battlefield like divine wrath made manifest, her form blazing with concentrated light magic that had been amplified far beyond her previous limitations. The luxury smoothie's attribute doubling, combined with dozens of other enhancements, had transformed her into a different person in terms of power. "This feels so good. I can capture the stars with this strength," Serafina thought with ecstasy. "Solar Lance Barrage," Serafina commanded, her voice resonating with power that made the air itself tremble. Dozens of brilliant spears materialized around her, each one crackling with purified light energy that sought Dark Elf targets with unbelievable accuracy. The first volley struck a number of Grandmasters who had been eliminating her retreating forces. "Ah!" The lead Grandmaster's scream cut short as the lance pierced through his defenses like they were paper, vaporizing him instantly. "No!" Another Dark Elf cried in terror before 3 more lances found their marks simultaneously. The Queen's intelligence boost that came from the various skills and effects had allowed her to process battlefield conditions with perfect tactical clarity, identifying priority targets and optimal attack sequences within microseconds. Her doubled comprehension speed compressed seconds of strategic analysis into instantaneous decision-making. "Radiant Wave," she declared, raising both hands as a tsunami of golden light swept across the battlefield. 6 more Grandmasters caught in the wave simply ceased to exist, their shadow-based magical defenses proving utterly inadequate against light magic against the Queen's attack. "Your Majesty lives," Elena sobbed with joy, her voice carrying across the battlefield as hope returned to the surviving Light Elves. "We're saved. The Queen has returned to us." The dramatic reversal sent shockwaves through both armies, both mental and physical. Light Elf forces who had been facing complete annihilation suddenly witnessed their enemies being obliterated by their miraculously restored ruler. "Impossible! Damn it! Why did things have to reach this stage?" A surviving Dark Elf Grandmaster gasped while desperately attempting retreat. "This level of power shouldn't exist." "Oh no! She is much stronger than before," Kale realized with growing horror. "We need Lord Darian." 2 seconds has passed and tens of Grandmasters and Masters had died. "Ugh! It's my fault. How could I be so foolish?" Serafina's relentless assault continued, eliminating Dark Elf commanders faster than they could coordinate defensive responses or withdrawals. "Light's final judgment," she roared, channeling every enhancement into a devastating area attack. The remaining Dark Elf Grandmasters in her immediate vicinity were consumed by purifying radiance that left nothing but scorched earth where they had stood. By the time Darien completed his own enhancement consumption and prepared to enter the conflict, 20 Grandmasters and nearly 60 Masters lay dead on the battlefield. The strategic balance had returned to its previous equilibrium. Both sides were now arguably on equal grounds. Both enhanced rulers now possessed roughly equivalent capabilities for what promised to be the final confrontation determining their kingdom's ultimate fate. Queen Seraphina's body continued radiating brilliant golden light as she faced off against Darien, the enhancement effects creating an almost blinding aura around her form. The luminous display made her appear more like a star than a ruler. Seeing the radiant glow surrounding her, Darien frowned with obvious irritation. His own enhanced body showed no such spectacular visual effects when he had consumed the smoothie, making him wonder what additional benefits she might have gained. Damn shopkeeper! Darien raged internally as he surveyed the devastating losses his forces had suffered in mere seconds. This reversal came from one source only, his interference. Despite his fury at the sudden battle shift, Darien maintained enough discipline to avoid reckless engagement with the queen. After all, she had just consumed the luxury smoothie. While he had done the same, the difference was that he possessed only temporary attribute enhancement effects currently and his skill increase. He remained uncertain about what abilities she might have awakened or strengthened through the process. He wasn't too afraid, but he needed to be careful, lest her new abilities take him by surprise and the tides change. Her current power levels appeared too dangerous for direct confrontation without additional information about her new capabilities. Carefully positioning himself near Noah's territorial boundary, Darien ensured he could retreat into neutral protection if the battle turned against him. Noah could practically read Darien's thought process of escaping to his territory when things went wrong. His mouth twitched slightly, recognizing how both rulers were exploiting his neutrality rules for their advantage. "These elves are using my boundary as a safety net," he muttered with growing amusement. He couldn't prevent Darien's positioning without showing obvious bias, especially after allowing Queen Seraphina similar sanctuary earlier. With a resigned sigh, he decided to tolerate the manipulation rather than compromise his established neutrality. Lola glanced at him with curious assessment. "Do you truly maintain no bias between them?" Noah shook his head with honest self-reflection. "Inside the shop, I have no bias. They're purchasing identical items under equal conditions. But outside these walls, I'm leaning slightly toward the Light Elves, simply because they were being slaughtered mercilessly earlier." He paused before adding, "Of course, if the Light Elves had won the original auction and were dominating, I would probably lean toward the Dark Elves instead. But the bias remains minimal," Noah continued with genuine uncertainty. "I still struggle to understand the deeper nature of their conflict. Are they truly fighting over something as superficial as skin color and magical talent differences?" Lola considered his question carefully. Most wars begin with territory or resources, but decades of hatred create their own momentum. The original causes often become less important than the accumulated grievances. So they're perpetuating violence for its own sake rather than addressing legitimate concerns? Noah asked with growing comprehension of the tragic cycle he was witnessing. Possibly. Each generation inherits anger from the previous, making peace increasingly difficult to achieve. Before launching himself back into direct confrontation, Darien made a calculated choice. Victory, he knew, was never claimed by strength alone but by timing, by control, and by the will to bend others into the rhythm of his design. He raised his hand in a commanding gesture, sharp and absolute, toward his remaining forces. "Ray, Vale, Mordain, to me, immediately." His voice cut through the chaos of the battlefield like a blade, sharp and undeniable. 3 of his most powerful archmages, champions who had survived countless campaigns against the Light Leaves, broke away from their current positions without hesitation. Their movements were swift and disciplined, as though the very air parted to allow them passage toward the boundary line where their king awaited. Seraphina, watchful of Darien's movement, caught sight of their retreat. A dangerous smile curled upon her lips. She lifted her hand, luminous energy gathering around her fingers like the sunlight, preparing a spell meant to obliterate them midway or, at the very least, to halt their advance. But Darien had seen through her before the thought had even finished forming in her mind. Anticipation radiated from his eyes as he conjured his own weapon. A spear of shadow, honed to perfection. It was the same spear that he had struck Seraphina with moments earlier, and Noah's interception would have been the end of the light elves in this world. The moment Seraphina's radiance surged forward towards Darien's oncoming subjects, Darien's dark spear met it. Light and shadow collided in midair, detonating with a catastrophic force that split the air. The explosion tore through the sky, scattering fragments of blinding brilliance and consuming gloom across the battlefield. To the distant onlookers, it was awe-inspiring, as a cosmic duel painted in black and gold. But to those within its reach, it was devastation incarnate, a cataclysm that could unmake archmages as though they were fragile clay dolls. Through this maelstrom, Darien's summons arrived unscathed, their loyalty shielding them from hesitation and their power shielding them from the aftermath of the attacks. Soon Inuji, they stood before Darien as the battlefield roared around them. "My lord, what are your orders?" Ray said, his voice steady despite the carnage. His expression was as calm as ever, as though death didn't bother him. Darien's gaze hardened, his words carrying two messages, a warning and a command. With his eyes still on Seraphina, he said, "That woman has gained unknown abilities from that smoothie. She's being insidious, hiding the full scope of her new power. That makes her dangerous beyond measure. We must force her to reveal her ace before we commit to a true assault." Vale inclined his head before saying, "You want to perform a probing attack, enough to press her defenses and reveal her hidden ace." "Exactly." Darien's voice was iron. "We will strike from multiple angles, overwhelm her normal power, force her to dip into this new concealed strength. Only then will we know what she has awakened." Mordain narrowed his eyes, studying Seraphina from across the chaos. The queen glowed faintly, standing nearer to her own forces than was typical for her boldness. "She's keeping her distance, avoiding direct engagement. That suggests she's being overly cautious, or preparing for something far greater than what seems apparent. Which is precisely why intelligence is paramount," Darien said coldly. "I will not risk our legions blindly. Probe her, bleed her. Then I will strike once we understand what we face." Before dispatching them, Darien reached into his storage ring. Within were the newly acquired treasures from that human shopkeeper. He withdrew one of the items and turned to Vale. "Vale, you stand closest to the peak of Archmage rank. Take this." From the ring emerged a smoothie that pulsed with faint, unnatural energy. "It will help you push beyond your current limit." Vale's eyes widened at the sight, his composure faltering. "Lord Darien, this is too much. Such an item." "Vale? That's enough. I am not here to debate. This is my command. Drink it. Now, our brothers bleed while we waste words." Darien's tone cracked like a whip, silencing further protest from Vale. Spotting the unyielding glare in his king's eyes, Vale bowed his head in shame, his pride bruised but his loyalty unshaken. "Your command is my will, my lord. I will not fail you." He raised the vessel reverently, consuming its contents in one defiant gulp. Darien gave a firm nod before turning to the others. From his ring came a variety of strange yet familiar items from the shops, whether it was the protein bar, energy drink, instant coffee, everything was there. "You two are not yet ready for the greater item," Darien told Ray and Mordain, his tone firm but not unkind. "Do not resent this, it is only a matter of timing. Your day will come, once we've torn the heart from our enemies. For now, take these, strengthen yourselves." "Of course, your majesty. We don't dare think so presumptuously. Vale deserves it, especially as the strongest one out of us." Both men accepted the gifts with reverence, bowing before their king. They consumed the items swiftly, power coursing through their veins in visible waves. "Thank you, Lord Darien," they said as one, their voices resolute. Darien's eyes burned with grim satisfaction as his grandmasters spread into their formation, spacing themselves at calculated intervals along the neutral boundary. Their stance was not one of reckless advance but of controlled menace, poised to strike and retreat at will. Seraphina's eyes had remained on Darien and his own group as they whispered smung each other. She had tried to eavesdrop, but they had obviously stopped her attempt by encrypting their voices using their mana. Sensing that the Dark Elves were planning a coordinated assault, Seraphina refused to wait passively like some incompetent antagonist. Instead, she called for her 5 strongest remaining grandmasters to form protective formation around her position. The Light Elf elite arrived almost instantaneously, their enhanced speed allowing rapid deployment despite the battlefield chaos. The Light Elves tightened their formation around their queen, weaving a flawless defense of overlapping barriers and interlinked wards. Seraphina stood at the center of it all, a blazing beacon of authority and light, her glow making her defenders appear as though they were extensions of her will. The battlefield trembled as the clash reignited with intensity. Both sides had consumed their enhancements, and the air itself felt fear from the attacks that were about to be launched. Flashes of light and rippling waves of shadow tore across the field, warping the sky into a storm of colliding energies. Ray, Mordain, and Vale surged forward, their auras swelling to incredible proportions. To outside observers, it seemed as though they were intent on the Light Elves around Seraphina, channeling colossal attacks against them. But at the precise instant the Archmage Light Elves committed to blocking them, the Grandmasters twisted their spells, redirecting them with flawless timing and control toward the unassuming Seraphina that had only focused on Darien till the last moment. She had believed that her subordinates would fight the Dark Elves that Darien had called for, but she didn't realize that she was always the target even after her own summoning of Archmage-level mages. The Queen's eyes widened ever so slightly, her senses straining to adjust. Even with her impressive perception, the feint caught her off guard. For attacks converged upon her from different areas, collapsing like a cage. Ray unleashed a torrent of blazing elemental fury, a maelstrom of fire and wind that scorched the very ground it touched. Noah watched the blazing torrent with growing amazement. That skill was really powerful, and at some point he would also be able to create such a powerful skill with his elemental skills. Noah's eyes then caught the attack of the others. Mordain's conjured multiple darkness tendrils that surged like claws carrying the power of pure annihilation. Vale's dark magic condensed into a singular beam of destruction. And from the front, Darien hurled his concentrated spear of abyssal power. The reason he kept spamming the same skill was simple: it was his strongest one. The spear had been a skill he had developed throughout his life, and the luxury smoothie had upgraded it. The combined onslaught bore down on Seraphina like a storm meant to erase her existence. The elven subjects cried out in fury at the deception of the Dark Elves. Their formation fractured as they retaliated with ferocity, focusing their rage on the 3 grandmasters who had dared strike at their queen. "Cowards! Fight us!" Brilliant lances of light speared across the field, detonating against Ray and Mordain with bone-shattering force. Both men staggered back, their bodies wreathed in burning arcs. Without the unnatural fortification of Darien's strange consumables, they would have been reduced to ash in that instant. But when the light crashed upon Vale, the result was entirely different. "Shadow bubble!" Vale roared, slamming his palm against the ground. A sphere of pure void snapped into existence around him, swallowing the radiant lances whole. The barrier did not simply absorb the strikes. It bent them, twisted them, and hurled shards of their brilliance back at their casters. Elven cries of pain echoed as the reflected energy scorched their ranks. Gasps of shock spread among both armies. The smoothie had done more than enhance Vale's body, it had awakened a dormant skill. Darien's eyes narrowed with satisfaction. The luxury smoothie had wielded its best outcome, the awakening of a dormant skill. Darien felt increasingly happy about the way he used the item. Perfect. He pressed the moment, slipping into the chaos like a mantis through tall grass, using the storm of attacks and counterattacks as camouflage for his advance. His gaze locked on Seraphina, hunting for the precise instant to strike a killing blow. But the queen was no fool, and Darien's gambit had served its purpose. Forced to the edge of desperation, Seraphina's face twisted with fury. Her voice rang out across the battlefield, filled with venom and defiance. "Darien, you bastard! You can never fight without resorting to your petty tricks. Pathetic." Darien scoffed at her words. He couldn't care less what a harlot like her would say. She should have been long dead, but that was fine. She was about to die again, and this time he would make sure of it. Behind Seraphina, light coalesced violently, before condensing into a construct of impossible magnitude. From nothing, a sword began to take form. The sword was vast, radiant, and powerful. Its blade stretched upward until it dwarfed the soldiers around it. It was as tall as a two-story building. The very air trembled as if crying under its weight. The sight alone sent shivers through even the most battle-hardened veterans. On the distant flank, Noah's face froze, his hands shaking not from fear, but from excitement at witnessing such levels of power. That's a genuinely terrifying skill. It's incomparable to the attacks of the Grandmaster Dark Elves. Seraphina's voice cut like thunder as she raised her arm before stropping it down in finality, as if calling for an execution. Light execution. The colossal blade fell in a sweeping arc, its edge encompassing the sky and everyone around. The Dark Elves' combined assault met it head-on. For a heartbeat, darkness and flame, and storm clashed against the radiant giant. Then the sword carved through them all, obliterating their combined might. The detonation blinded the battlefield, a curtain of white fire cascading across both armies. The blade did not stop there. Its trajectory carried on, its energy still immense despite the drain of countering so many spells at once. Its path cut directly towards the Dark Elves' combined attack. Darien's eyes widened, not in panic, but in realization. If that strike had landed at its full strength without his preparation for defense, it would have ended him. And his ending would have caused the chain reaction of death to his race. Victory, crushed beneath the Queen's radiant execution. After Seraphina's devastating strike concluded, Darien didn't hesitate for even a moment. He immediately launched himself toward the Queen, closing the distance between them to engage in close-quarters combat. His reasoning was sound. Even though she had awakened a powerful dormant skill, such abilities invariably carried significant limitations. There was no conceivable way Seraphina could deploy the same massive light execution technique again so quickly, making this the optimal window for aggressive assault. Darien's speed allowed him to cover the battlefield distance with supernatural speed, his approach creating sonic booms as he pushed his augmented physical capabilities to their limits. "Dark Strike!" he roared while closing in, launching dozens of concentrated dark projectiles designed to overwhelm her defensive capabilities through sheer volume. Seraphina, still recovering from the enormous mana expenditure of her previous attack, found herself forced into defensive positioning. Her enhanced attributes allowed her to deflect most of his projectiles, but the sustained assault pushed her backwards across the battlefield. "Light barrier!" she commanded, creating a shimmering wall of radiant energy between them. But Darien's strike proved sufficient to shatter through her hastily constructed defense, his shadow-wreathed fist punching through the barrier like it was made of glass. The close-range engagement that followed showcased the true extent of their capabilities. Both rulers moved with speed that made their forms blur, exchanging devastating strikes that would have leveled buildings if they had missed their intended targets. Seraphina's light magic clashed directly with Darien's shadow abilities in a series of rapid exchanges that lit up the battlefield with alternating brilliance and darkness. The two powerful leaders of the Elven faction were finally testing their capabilities against each other in direct combat, determining whose talent would prove superior in a decisive battle. Watching their respective leaders engage in direct combat, both factions fought with renewed intensity. The display of unprecedented power motivated each side, as they recognized that victory now seemed genuinely achievable through their ruler's artificial augmentation. "Come on, everyone. Fight to the death. We will not stop until light prevails and darkness is abolished." One of the archmages from the Light Elf faction shouted. The response to the Light Elf's words was immediate. Humph, you sure are delusional. The only light you will see is the one at the end of the tunnel. Come on, let's show these pathetic Light Elves that we are the superior race. We are the ones chosen by the World Tree, not them. As light fought against darkness, one individual remained conspicuously absent from this surge of battlefield enthusiasm. Prince Adrian Silveroak found himself locked in combat with a Dark Elf opponent, his Grandmaster rank abilities allowing him to maintain defensive positioning despite his obvious reluctance to fight. As the Queen's nephew, participation was mandatory. Otherwise, serious questions about his loyalty to their cause would inevitably arise. He delivered a powerful kick that sent his opponent staggering backwards, creating the distance he needed for his true purpose. Without hesitation, Adrian immediately abandoned the engagement and sprinted toward Noah's neutral zone. He had endured enough of this senseless war. Now that the mysterious shopkeeper had revealed himself and demonstrated his willingness to intervene in their conflict, Adrian decided the risk of approaching him was worthwhile. Don't let him run. The Dark Elf that was fighting Adrian shouted before attempting to follow Adrian. Multiple Dark Elf forces launched attacks at the fleeing prince as he crossed the battlefield, recognizing an opportunity to eliminate high-value leadership among the Light Elves. Adrian avoided what projectiles he could while defending against those that couldn't be evaded, his enhanced capabilities allowing him to maintain forward momentum despite the sustained assault. Soon enough, he reached the territorial boundary and crossed into Noah's protected zone, immediately making his way toward the shop entrance with obvious determination despite the accumulating wounds on his body. Once he arrived, he let out the breath he had been holding before taking out a loaf of bread to eat. His body's natural regeneration immediately increased, and his body entered a state of revitalization. A sigh of relief escaped his mouth as he was finally away from all the bloodshed on the battlefield. Noah watched the approaching elf with curious interest, noting that he was the only combatant from either faction who had chosen to seek him out rather than continue fighting. Lola, beside Noah, glanced at him before saying with a curious tone, "What do you think he wants?" Noah shrugged before saying, "Not sure, but we are about to find out." "What brings you to my establishment during such intense conflict?" Noah asked as Adrian approached, genuinely intrigued by what this individual might want that couldn't wait until the battle concluded. Taking a deep breath, Adrian walked until he stood before Noah, who remained positioned at the shop entrance. Lola stayed alert nearby, ready to intervene if this unexpected visitor harbored hostile intentions. "I need your help, human shopkeeper," Adrian said with obvious desperation. "My help? What do you want?" "I can't sell you anything. My stock has been depleted by your ruler's purchases." Adrian shook his head with urgent dismissal. "I want your help with something else entirely. We both know you're not a simple merchant, and frankly speaking, I'm exhausted by this endless war. For the past few decades, it has brought our nations nothing but suffering and pain. So I'm pleading with you, O great human, save our kingdoms." Noah looked at Adrian with an expression that suggested he was regarding someone who had lost touch with the reality before him, though his tone remained respectful rather than dismissive. "Prince Adrian, I think you're fundamentally misunderstanding my role here. I'm a shopkeeper who sells items. I'm not some hero waiting to solve your centuries-old political conflicts." He gestured toward the ongoing battle where enhanced rulers were reshaping the landscape with their powers. "What you're witnessing out there is the direct result of your leaders' choices, both in starting this war and in how they've chosen to use the capabilities I provided. I didn't create your conflict. They did. The power to end this war lies with your people, not with me. If you're truly tired of the suffering, then work within your own political systems to advocate for peace. But asking a foreign merchant to somehow save your kingdom places responsibility in the wrong hands entirely." Lola nodded in agreement, recognizing the wisdom in Noah's refusal to accept blame or responsibility for conflicts that preceded his arrival by centuries. "You want change? Start by convincing people like your aunt to choose negotiation over annihilation." Noah concluded with honest directness. That's where real solutions begin. Adrian sighed before saying, "You've misunderstood me, human shopkeeper. I'm not blaming you for the conflict, nor am I asking you to save our country out of pity. Rather, I'm requesting your help for a price. As for advocating for peace, I've done that plenty of times. My advocacy was only met with rejection. As for talking to the rulers, they would both chop my head off without restraint. I've tried everything already, and the only solution possibly lies in your hands. So I request that you end this war, and in exchange, I will lead you to the World Tree." Lola's eyes widened in shock before her expression shifted to anger. "How dare you? You're trying to scam my boss into fighting for your cause by promising him something nobody knows the whereabouts of. It's common knowledge that the elves lost contact with the World Tree centuries ago. Who are you trying to fool?" Adrian nodded grimly. Indeed, the elves lost touch with the World Tree for centuries. But, recently, some unexplainable phenomena have been occurring around both kingdoms, so I sent my loyal followers to investigate. His voice had been a whisper throughout the mentioning of the World Tree, deliberately concealing this information even from his fellow light elves. He had even made sure to conceal their conversation by using his mana to disrupt any eavesdropping. The result was my discovery of the World Tree's location. Lola remained skeptical, shaking her head in disbelief. "I don't believe it. If you had truly found it, you would have told your queen about the World Tree, and this war would have already ended in ways that would reshape this entire area." "That was precisely the point," Adrian replied with grim determination. "I didn't want the war to end the way my aunt intended. The queen wants the Dark Elves completely annihilated, and that approach is foolish beyond measure." His voice carried passionate conviction as he continued. "The Dark Elves aren't mentally ill or inherently evil. They simply possess different magical affinities and physical characteristics. I want to reestablish the old unified kingdom of the elves, where both dark and light elves coexisted in peace. Telling the queen about the World Tree's location would seal the fate of the Dark Elves and anyone who opposes her vision of total dominance." Adrian explained with obvious frustration at his impossible position. Noah looked between them with growing confusion, feeling completely lost in their exchange. Lola turned to Noah to provide context. "The World Tree is legendary among elven societies, supposedly the source of all elven magical power, and the original seat of their unified civilization before the split occurred. If it truly exists and could be accessed, controlling it would grant whoever had the ability power that no elf would have. That level of power could indeed end the war, but through domination." Adrian spoke with urgency. "The World Tree releases a single drop that contains pure mana essence. Once absorbed slowly by a user, it would allow them to reach levels of power they couldn't even dream of achieving through normal means." For the first time in a very long period, Noah's system seemed compelled to interject with immediate commentary. "Host, you must try to reach that World Tree. You cannot miss this opportunity." Noah's eyes widened momentarily before he composed himself, maintaining a calm exterior while his mind raced with questions. "What do you mean, system? Why do you seem so insistent about this? It's not exactly easy to reach that location, especially with the current chaos. Grandmasters are dying like insects out there, let alone someone like me, a mere apprentice-rank practitioner." The system's response carried unprecedented urgency in its tone. "This drop from the World Tree will provide sufficient energy to upgrade my core systems and enable travel to Level 2 worlds. This advancement is essential if you want access to stronger dimensional destinations. Without it, the natural energy accumulation required would take several years before I can facilitate travel to more powerful realms." Noah's internal excitement surged as the implications crystallized. System upgrades? Level 2 worlds. This isn't some minor enhancement of the system. This represents a fundamental expansion. The World Tree had instantly transformed from an interesting elven legend into a critical component of his interdimensional business expansion plans. "Prince Adrian, assuming I were interested in this arrangement, what exactly would ending this war entail?" Adrian's expression showed hope mixed with desperation. "You wouldn't need to fight them directly. Your influence over both rulers through their enhancement dependencies could provide the leverage necessary for a negotiated settlement. If that doesn't work, then I would need your help in building a force to fight these two rulers. This would follow that no items would be sold to both factions, and the strengthening of our faction. Unfortunately, your items are expensive, and it would be really difficult for those fighting for the cause to buy them without the treasuries, so we would only be able to compensate you once the war is over. Of course, if you are able to fight them and deal with it, then there is no need for that. Noah considered the risks versus the potential rewards, recognizing that accessing level 2 worlds could exponentially increase his business opportunities. Noah knew that soon enough, this world would no longer provide him with any more store items or strength. It was as clear as day that the strongest possible rank in this world was the peak of Grandmaster rank. The decision would determine whether his shop remained limited to relatively low-level magical worlds or expanded into realms where true power existed. Noah stood there for a moment, contemplating his approach to the complex problem that had been presented to him. Solving a war that had lasted for decades, resulting in the deaths of tens or perhaps hundreds of Grandmaster practitioners and thousands of civilians, was certainly not a simple matter to navigate. The scale of the conflict and its deep-rooted nature demanded careful consideration. He needed to plan thoroughly and strategically. Noah had already decided to tackle the challenge that Adrian had presented, recognizing the rewards that awaited. However, before committing to such a dangerous undertaking, he needed absolute verification that the information was genuine and no deception was involved. Noah withdrew one of the most powerful artifacts he had gathered during his time in this world. The Eye of Apollo appeared in his hand instantly, his storage ring responding to his mental command. "This is?" Adrian asked with obvious confusion. The mysterious human had produced what appeared to be an ornate orb, and Adrian wondered if this might be another priceless treasure capable of ending their conflict, similar to the enhancement items he had witnessed being sold. "This is the Eye of Apollo. Prince Adrian, I hope you won't take offense at my next words, but this verification must be conducted. This artifact will allow me to verify your claims completely. I will ask you several questions, and I hope you answer them truthfully. Any lies, whether obvious or hidden, will be exposed, and we will not maintain good relations afterwards. Is that understood?" Adrian paused as he comprehended the artifact's purpose. He sighed with a wry smile before responding with resigned acceptance. "Fair enough. What are your questions?" Noah activated the Eye of Apollo, feeling its truth detection capabilities engage as he prepared his inquiries. "First, does the world tree truly exist in a location you can access?" Noah asked with a direct tone. "Yes, I have personally confirmed its location through my team's scouting," Adrian replied without hesitation. The Eye of Apollo remained steady, indicating complete truthfulness. "Second, do you know the approximate location and how to reach it safely?" "Yes, I know the approximate location and how to reach it safely. Normally, the journey would involve significant dangers that would require careful planning and adequate protection for normal elves. But as long as a powerful Grandmaster exists within the group, it would be a non-threatening journey." Again, the artifact detected no deception. "Third, and this is crucial, do Queen Seraphina or Lord Regent Darien know about the World Tree's location or its appearance?" Adrian shook his head firmly. "Neither of them possesses this knowledge as far as I know. I deliberately concealed this discovery from both rulers to prevent it from being used for total domination rather than genuine peace. I believe that my words are correct since both rulers would have already tried to take the drop from the World Tree by now." The Eye of Apollo confirmed his complete honesty, alleviating Noah's concerns about hidden agendas from either faction's leadership. "Fourth, what are your true motivations for approaching me? Are you acting on anyone else's behalf?" "I act entirely on my own initiative," Adrian replied with obvious sincerity. "My goal is to end this senseless war through the restoration of the original unified Elven Kingdom. No one else knows about my approach to you." The artifact validated his statement completely. After completing his verification process, Noah nodded with satisfaction at the consistent truthfulness he had detected from Adrian. The noble prince really just wanted peace for the kingdom of elves without any ulterior motives. Very well, I accept your proposal. I will attempt to help resolve the conflict between Lord Regent Darien and Queen Seraphina in exchange for gaining access to the World Tree's essence drop. Adrian looked visibly relieved and pleased at Noah's acceptance, understanding that this represented their best hope for ending the devastating conflict that had consumed both kingdoms. Thank you, Adrian said with sincere gratitude. This gives our people their first real chance for peace in decades. The challenge would require diplomatic finesse rather than direct confrontation, leveraging his unique position as the source of their enhanced abilities to create negotiating opportunities that could lead to sustainable peace. Adrian provided Noah with detailed directions and estimated coordinates to the general area of the World Tree before preparing to depart. The conversation had already drawn suspicious attention. The Queen had noticed his prolonged discussion with the mysterious shopkeeper while deliberately concealing the content of their exchange. Adrian sighed before leaving the safety of Noah's establishment and returning to the battlefield. He made sure his demeanor suggested someone who had attempted negotiation but failed miserably, maintaining the deception that would protect both their arrangement and his true purpose. Once back in combat, Adrian completely ignored Queen Seraphina's searching looks and fleeting gazes that she cast toward him whenever battle conditions allowed. He projected complete focus on the fighting, as if his conversation with Noah had been inconsequential rather than potentially world-changing. Lola observed Adrian's return to combat before turning to Noah with her own concerns about the deal. So, what's your plan now? You have the World Tree's location, but reaching it presents extreme difficulties. The distance isn't trivial, and once you leave this sanctuary, you expose yourself to significant risks. She gestured toward the ongoing battle between the powerful rulers whose power levels exceeded that of most grandmasters. The shop conceals your actual capabilities, but outside these boundaries, they might grow suspicious of your strength and attempt something foolish against you. Noah nodded with a grim expression. He acknowledged the challenges that the deal he accepted presented. Whilst it might have seemed like it was an easy decision to reach for Adrian, in reality it wasn't. Adrian did not know that Noah was an apprentice-rank practitioner. I understand the complications, Lola. This requires careful planning rather than impulsive action. His mind was already processing multiple variables, whether it was timing that would minimize exposure to both factions and contingency plans for various scenarios that could emerge during such a dangerous journey. The World Tree represented an opportunity that he couldn't miss, but reaching it alive would require strategic thinking that balanced ambition with survival. Whilst he was technically immortal in the way that once he died, he would respawn back on Earth. That didn't change the fact that he didn't want to die if possible. Furthermore, based on the way that Adrian and Lola were talking, not everyone can simply take the World Tree and use its essence drop. The person must be qualified to gain the essence drop. It was clearly one of the main reasons that Prince Adrian himself did not take the essence drop. It was because he probably couldn't. There's no need to rush through this without proper preparation, Noah concluded while watching the rulers continue their devastating conflict. The World Tree has waited centuries to be found. It can wait a few more days while I develop a viable approach. A smile formed on Lola's face as she listened to Noah's words. He was cool-headed and wasn't lured by the magnificence of the essence drop. Rather, he thought about his plans carefully and meticulously, and that was a trait she loved about him. As Lola silently admired Noah, he was reviewing his current capabilities and resources. Host: Noah Carter. Age 28. Shop Level 2. Daily Revenue: $2,153,000 or equivalent. Current Assets: $21,159,840. Shop Points: 32,890. Attributes: Strength 90, Vitality 140, Intelligence 90, Agility 90. Skills: Level 12 Smiley Face Swordsmanship. Level 11 Smiley Face Body Tempering Wind Manipulation Mana Control Aura. Level 3 Smiley Face Surviving on Ramen, Cooking, Finance, Gaming. Level 2 Smiley Face Programming Photographic Memory. His attributes had reached impressive levels through his item consumption. The shop points had accumulated substantially from the recent sales. They were so incredibly high that it made him wonder whether there would be features that would allow for the usage of these points during the next shop evolution. His basic items had reached the highest max level they could. Auto Iced Tea Maker, Level 5 8 per hour max stock, 192,325/1000 EXP. Auto Baker, Level 516/HR max stock, 384,1000/1000 EXP. The Auto Baker could no longer upgrade to the next level, clearly limited by the shop level. The same went for the Iced Tea Maker. His Tier 1 items, however, were slowly approaching their next level. Auto Protein Bar, Level 10.5/HR max stock, 1277/100 EXP. Auto Energy Drink, Level 10.5/HR max stock, 1274/100 EXP. Auto Beef Jerky, Level 10.5/HR max stock, 1274/100 EXP. Auto Rice Cake, Level 10.5/HR max stock, 1260/100 EXP. Noah estimated that it would take 3 to 4 days before his automakers finally reached the next level. As for Tier 2 items, they were still lagging behind the others. Auto Instant Coffee, Level 10.5/HR max stock, 1240/100 EXP. Auto Herb Tea, Level 10.5/HR max stock, 1240/100 EXP. Auto Rose Candy, Level 10.5/HR max stock, 12.4/100 EXP. Auto Luxury Smoothie, Level 10.5/HR max stock, 12.4/100 EXP. The instant coffee and herb tea would take 5 days, and the rose candy and luxury smoothie would take 10 days. Noah wasn't in a hurry, but increasing the level of these automakers would help a lot with his plans. After checking his own status and his automaker's progress, Noah thought of a way to solve the issue he had been struggling with. System, would it count towards the automaker's progress if I sold an item to Lola, then she gave it to me? No. Don't play around with the rules, host. Noah sighed inwardly. He had wanted to sell the items to Lola for a cheap price to get them going. Then Lola would return them to him and he could work on his strength alongside her. He had wanted to level up Lola and himself while also leveling up the automakers. His plan was to use the herb tea and instant coffee to gain the temporary effects that helped both of them gain more enlightenment during their practices, increasing their strength at a faster rate. Noah turned toward Lola, who had been observing him throughout his status review and internal planning process. Lola, I have an idea on how to tackle this issue, but it really depends on you more than it does on me. Of course, you have the right to reject it and I can think of something else. Before Noah could finish his cautious proposal, Lola placed her index finger gently against his lips to silence him. Shoo, don't say that. You haven't even heard my answer yet. Don't jump to conclusions, you love doing that, she said with gentle amusement. Tell me, what is your plan? Noah composed himself after the momentary distraction. I want to strengthen you using the shop's full daily stock of instant coffee and mystical herbal tea to the point where you can compete with Seraphina and Darian without any disadvantage. Then you would escort me to the World Tree, since our risk would be minimized significantly with your new power. Lola couldn't contain her laughter at his proposal. Why are you laughing? Noah asked with confusion at her reaction. Noah, you're telling me that you were going to strengthen me with items worth tens of thousands of golden coins, and you feared I would reject such an offer? You really thought I might refuse? Noah's expression grew more serious as he explained his reasoning. You would be putting yourself at significant risk during the escort mission. I don't want to ask you to face dangers on my behalf. Lola's expression shifted to something between fondness and exasperation. Noah, what do you take me for? I'm not someone who hasn't experienced the world outside these walls. I've fought for my life throughout most of my existence. I've always lived with danger, and I don't fear it. Besides, why would I fear them when you're offering to strengthen me to their exact level? Coupled with the additional items we possess that they don't have access to, we would have clear advantages in any confrontation. She stepped closer, her ruby eyes reflecting both determination and something deeper. You've given me so much already, whether it's safety, purpose, or... Lola paused for a second before continuing. This is simply returning the favor by using my power to help achieve something important to you. You're not asking me to sacrifice myself foolishly. You're proposing to enhance my abilities and then rely on my expertise for a dangerous but calculated mission. Noah studied her expression, recognizing the sincerity behind her acceptance and the logic of her arguments. After hearing Lola's acceptance, Noah sighed before a wry smile appeared on his face. What would I do without you? You really make life easier, don't you? Lola giggled like a little girl at his compliment before saying with obvious pleasure, anything for my boss, Lola, how long do you think it would take you to reach the power level of these two? Noah asked as he observed Seraphina and Darian's ongoing battle. Lola turned to study the enhanced rulers with an analytical gaze. Based on having daily rations of 2 powerful enhancement items, I would estimate 3 to 4 days if I dedicate myself completely to advancement. She paused before adding teasingly, mind you, I might become stronger earlier if you check up on me often and give me goodbye kisses before leaving. She winked playfully. Noah seemed to completely ignore her flirtation as he processed the timeline. 3 to 4 days. He repeated thoughtfully. That's pretty good. All right then, it's settled. Noah took one final look at the fighters outside before walking toward the door and opening it. He had kept it closed during their strategic discussion to prevent any potential eavesdropping. Taking a deep breath, Noah spoke with calm authority, using mana amplification to project his voice across the entire battlefield. A new item auction will be announced once this fighting concludes. When both parties cease combat and enter the safe zone, the item will be revealed. The announcement struck the battlefield like a thunderbolt. Every combatant heard his words with perfect clarity, and the reaction was immediate. Another item? Gasped a light elf grandmaster, parrying a shadow attack while processing the shocking news. After what the last one caused? Impossible, breathed a dark elf master, momentarily lowering his guard. What could possibly be more powerful than the luxury smoothie? If the previous enhancement led to this war, Elena thought between defensive spells, what devastation could the next one bring? The psychological impact was immediate and profound. Both factions began questioning whether continuing their current battle was strategically wise when an even more powerful enhancement might soon become available. Seraphina and Darian exchanged meaningful glances across the battlefield, their enhanced intelligence immediately recognizing the implications. Both rulers simultaneously began disengaging from their personal duel while maintaining defensive awareness. This changes everything, Seraphina muttered, her light magic dimming as she stepped back from aggressive positioning. Another auction means another opportunity, Darian calculated, his shadow constructs dispersing as he evaluated the new situation. Darian was the first to move toward the safe zone, his enhanced speed allowing rapid repositioning while his forces followed suit. The other grandmasters began slowly disengaging from their individual battles, though some remained so absorbed in combat that they continued fighting despite the announcement. Adrian felt overwhelming relief at Noah's intervention. The mysterious shopkeeper was already implementing his plans, though Adrian couldn't understand why revealing a new item was necessary for peace negotiations. Whatever his strategy, at least the fighting is stopping, Adrian thought with gratitude as he defensively retreated from his opponent. Most combatants began filtering into the neutral zone, but several dozen masters and grandmasters remained locked in combat, either too engaged to disengage safely or too consumed by bloodlust to care about potential auctions. Both Seraphina and Darian observed Noah standing with arms crossed, clearly waiting for the complete cessation of hostilities before proceeding with his announcement. Understanding the requirement, both rulers turned toward their respective forces with commanding authority. End the fighting. Now! Seraphina's voice boomed across the battlefield, enhanced by her magical capabilities. All forces disengage immediately. Darian's command echoed with equal power and authority. The remaining fighters reluctantly broke off their engagements and moved toward the safe zone, recognizing that their leaders required everyone's presence for whatever revelation was coming. Within minutes, Noah found himself facing two distinct legions of light and dark elves, nearly hundreds of practitioners at master and grandmaster rank, all waiting with rapt attention for him to speak. The assembled force represented more concentrated magical power than most kingdoms could deploy, yet they all stood silently awaiting the words of a single shopkeeper from Earth. After the fighting had stopped between both factions completely, Noah decided to start his ceremony. Noah raised his voice before addressing the assembled forces with the gravity befitting such a momentous revelation. "The item for auction is the Warrior's Protein Shake," he announced, producing the enhancement from his dimensional storage. This enhancement increases weapon proficiency learning speed by 20%, doubles all attributes for 1 hour, and grants enhanced weapon mastery. All physical attacks gain a 20% critical strike chance, and the user can wield any weapon type with basic competency during the effect. Also, upon first consumption, it permanently increases both agility and strength by 50 points. The reaction of the crowd was explosive, befitting that of a powerful item. Queen Seraphina's eyes blazed with excitement as she processed the implications this had on her power. "This enhancement would make my light execution technique absolutely devastating. Combined with doubled attributes and critical strike potential, I could obliterate Darian before he could mount any meaningful defense. That bastard would finally pay for his crimes against us." Lord Regent Darian's expression darkened with predatory hunger as similar calculations ran through his mind. "My shadow spear techniques would become unstoppable with those enhancements. Doubled attributes plus critical strikes. Seraphina wouldn't survive the first exchange. I could end this war permanently and claim both kingdoms for myself. Then, all these light elves will become my personal slaves. It's a pity that I can't take Seraphina as a slave. That woman is too dangerous." Both rulers stared at the enhancement with undisguised hatred for each other, each visualizing their enemy's destruction through the item revealed. Prince Adrian felt his stomach drop with growing horror. The shopkeeper was supposed to stop this war, yet he's offering them even more devastating power. This item isn't just dangerous, it's apocalyptic. Whichever ruler claims this enhancement will absolutely annihilate the other kingdom. This makes no strategic sense. Among the assembled forces, whispered conversations erupted as practitioners processed the shocking revelation. "Did you hear that correctly?" A light elf grandmaster murmured to his companion. 50 permanent attribute points to strength and agility, plus temporary doubling? Critical strikes on every 5th attack, responded another with obvious awe. Combined with weapon mastery enhancement, whoever gets this becomes insanely powerful. "This is a must-have item," a dark elf master whispered urgently. "Our lord would become unstoppable with such enhancement. The weapon proficiency boost alone would be worth thousands of golden coins," added his partner. "Look at their faces. These filthy dark elves are already acting as if they had won the war." Elena observed quietly to her fellow light elves. "This auction won't be about money," Kale muttered to his dark elf companions. "This will determine which kingdom survives and which gets completely erased." The tension in the neutral zone became suffocating as everyone recognized they were witnessing the prelude to either total victory or absolute annihilation for their respective factions. Noah continued addressing the assembled forces before him calmly. "The auction will take place in 3 days. This auction will differ from previous ones. Payment will not be in golden coins, but in magical artifacts, so prepare accordingly." The announcement sent ripples of concern through both factions as they mentally inventoried their most valuable possessions and calculated what treasures they could mobilize within the time frame. Darian stepped forward with barely concealed impatience. "Could the auction begin earlier? Time is a critical factor in our current situation." Noah found himself internally amused by the Dark Lord's obvious eagerness. This guy is in a rush to wipe the Light Elves from existence entirely. The bloodlust is practically radiating from him. Noah shook his head firmly. "That's not possible. The item isn't available yet and requires preparation time. He paused before delivering his most important condition, his voice carrying absolute authority that brooked no negotiation. For this auction to proceed, I'm establishing a rule. No fighting until the auction concludes. This is my requirement. You're free to decide whether you want to participate or continue your war. Queen Seraphina, who had gained an advantage during her recent exchanges with Darian, immediately recognized something was wrong with the rule. Her eyes narrowed with sharp intelligence as she studied Noah's face. Shopkeeper, you previously stated that you wouldn't interfere in our war. Yet now you're imposing conditions that directly affect our conflict. Has something changed your policy? Her gaze shifted suspiciously between Prince Adrian and Noah, having observed their brief conversation earlier. The timing wasn't coincidental. This new development had occurred immediately after Adrian's private discussion with the mysterious merchant. No, Noah replied with calm simplicity, offering no elaboration or justification for his decision. The single word hung in the air like a challenge, forcing both rulers to choose between continuing their destructive conflict or accepting his terms for access to potentially war-ending enhancement. Among the assembled forces, whispered discussions erupted as practitioners processed the ultimatum. 3 days without fighting, a light elf grandmaster murmured to his companion. That could change everything about our positioning. Or give them time to prepare countermeasures, replied another with obvious concern. Artifacts as payment, a dark elf master calculated quietly. We'll need to mobilize our most valuable treasures for this auction. The ceasefire condition troubles me more than the payment method, his partner responded. Lord Darian won't appreciate having his momentum interrupted. The neutral zone had become a powder keg of competing interests, with both factions forced to weigh immediate military advantages against potential access to enhancement that could decide their conflict permanently. In the end, both factions agreed to the ceasefire terms despite their obvious reluctance to halt their momentum. The decision came down to practical strategic considerations rather than any desire for peace. Both kingdoms recognized that continuing to lose Grandmaster-level practitioners would leave them vulnerable regardless of who emerged victorious from their current conflict. We cannot afford further casualties before the auction, Seraphina explained to her forces with a grim expression. Neighboring kingdoms are watching our conflict closely, waiting for an opportunity to strike when we're weakened. Darian reached similar conclusions with his own assessment. Winning this war with no power remaining would be meaningless if we face immediate invasion afterward. We preserve our strength for the final confrontation. Before the factions departed to prepare for the upcoming auction, Noah announced additional changes to his business operations. Tier 1 premium items will now be traded exclusively for elemental orbs rather than golden coins. Additionally, the quantity available for purchase has been reduced to 1 item per faction per day. The announcement created murmurs of concern among both groups, but Noah's reasoning was strategically sound from his perspective. The changes would allow him and Lola to accumulate the elemental essence needed for their own advancement while limiting how much additional power he provided to potential enemies. Restricting sales to 1 premium item daily per faction would slow their enhancement accumulation, giving him time to strengthen his own capabilities before the decisive auction. After the terms were settled and both factions formally agreed to the ceasefire, Noah watched as the grim aftermath of their conflict became visible. Grandmasters from both sides began the solemn task of collecting their fallen comrades' bodies for proper burial. The sight of enhanced practitioners, individuals who had spent decades developing extraordinary magical capabilities, being carried away as casualties was genuinely heartbreaking. The battlefield, which had been transformed into a wasteland of magical devastation, now served as a curse for some of the most powerful individuals either kingdom had ever produced. The cost of their hatred was written in the blood of masters and grandmasters who would never return home. The temporary peace felt hollow against the backdrop of such massive loss of life. Whether his intervention would ultimately reduce or increase the total suffering these kingdoms would experience was yet to be found. As the factions slowly made their way to their own territories, Noah closed the shop door. Inside the resort, Noah finally allowed himself to rest. He had set his plan in motion with the ceasefire announcement and auction declaration, Now he needed to wait for events to unfold rather than forcing immediate action. The exhaustion from training intensively in both worlds had accumulated despite his enhanced constitution. Physical and mental fatigue demanded proper recovery, especially with tomorrow's quarterfinal match approaching. While Noah felt confident about his tournament prospects given his advanced swordsmanship level and enhanced attributes, competing at peak performance required adequate rest. The quarterfinals would eliminate half the remaining contestants, making preparation crucial for continued advancement. Noah settled into his luxurious futon. His mind drifted to the 3-day ceasefire that would provide Lola time to strengthen herself with premium enhancement items, while giving both elven factions the illusion of an opportunity to gather artifacts for the upcoming auction. His gamble on using the warrior's protein shake as bait had successfully halted their destructive conflict, but the ultimate success of his strategy depended on maintaining that fragile peace until he could reach the world tree and complete his arrangement with Prince Adrian. Sleep came easily despite the weight of responsibility he now carried for potentially ending a decade-old war. His enhanced vitality allowed deep, restorative rest that would prepare him for whatever challenges tomorrow's tournament competition might bring. The resort's peaceful atmosphere provided a stark contrast to the magical battlefield he had left behind, where two armies now maintained an uneasy truce based entirely on their desire for his most powerful enhancement item. Noah woke up the next day to the sound of speakers announcing tournament preparations. The quarterfinals would begin in 1 hour. He rose from his futon, made his bed, and then headed to the washroom to prepare for the day ahead. Your daily idle income has been issued. $1,851,500 has been issued. Amulet of Protection has been issued. Eye of Apollo has been issued. It was certainly nice to see these items being issued. Such powerful items coupled with nearly $2 million were simply invaluable. After completing his morning routine, Noah entered his shop to check on Lola's progress with her enhancement training. Inside, he discovered Leo had already awakened from his extended sleep and was lying peacefully beside Lola, who sat in lotus position with deep concentration. Her breathing patterns and focused expression indicated she was actively comprehending new abilities or integrating recent skill developments. Noah chose not to interrupt her meditation, instead gently motioning for Leo to join him. The young lion rose slowly and walked toward Noah with obvious happiness at seeing his father. "Father, I have reached master rank," Leo announced excitedly, though he kept his voice incredibly low to avoid disturbing Lola's concentration. Noah nodded with genuine pride before gently rubbing Leo's golden mane. "Well done, Leo. I'm proud of your advancement. When we leave this place, I'll take you out hunting to test your new abilities. Unfortunately, if we venture outside right now, we'd be the ones getting hunted instead." His tone carried both affection for Leo's achievement and wry acknowledgement of their current precarious situation, where powerful elven factions existed outside his safe shop. The irony wasn't lost on him. Leo had achieved master rank just as they found themselves surrounded by grandmaster-level practitioners whose capabilities made even brief excursions outside the shop potentially lethal encounters. Glancing at Leo's updated status, Noah couldn't deny feeling a twinge of jealousy. Leo's advancement rate was genuinely astonishing, though the limitation that his potential remained capped at master rank created a barrier that would need addressing. Noah hoped that one of his future enhancement items might eventually break through such limitations. Pet number 1 Leo. Growth Adult. Rank Master. Potential Master. Skills. Titan Form Shift. Leo bends his body to the extremes of power, compressing into the stealthy form of a predator no larger than a cub or expanding into the towering frame of a colossal lion draped in a radiant mane. Each size grants unique advantages. Smaller forms excel in speed and infiltration, while larger forms amplify strength, resilience, and presence. Rift Trend Claw, or a strike infused with a golden mane's essence. Leo drives mana into his claws, raking through foes with a blow that rends through flesh and armor alike. The wound glows with a searing aftershock, bleeding both life and energy over time. Thronebreaker Roar, the perfected evolution of his battle cry. Leo unleashes a kingdom-rattling roar that shakes ground and sky, enforcing his supremacy. Enemies are crushed under waves of fear, paralysis, and frailty, while allies bask in the roar's resonance, their wounds knitting, spirits surging, and blades empowered with temporary might. After entering the master rank, Leo's skills had evolved once more, becoming more lethal and more powerful than before. The previous size manipulation skill has become Titan Form Shift, which provided tactical versatility that few practitioners could match, while his Riftrend Claw and Thronebreaker Roar had become devastating weapons that could influence entire battlefields. Your skills have evolved to become incredibly sophisticated, Noah observed with admiration. The Thronebreaker Roar especially sounds like it could turn the tide of major conflicts. Leo's tail swished with pride at his father's recognition. Thank you, Papa. I want to be strong enough to protect you and Lola when we travel to dangerous places. Noah smiled at Leo's noble ambition, though privately he understood the harsh reality. Leo's master rank, while impressive for his age and species, remained insufficient against the Grandmaster-level threats they would face during their journey to the World Tree. The gap between Master and Grandmaster represented a chasm that raw determination couldn't bridge. Rather than crushing the young lion's spirits with brutal honesty, Noah chose encouragement that would foster Leo's continued growth while maintaining realistic expectations. Then I will depend on you in the future, Leo, Noah said with warmth that carried genuine affection despite his internal concerns. Leo's eyes brightened with visible happiness at Noah's words. Fader, you can rest assured. I will take care of you.